Good evening, Salman bhai. Salman bhai, good evening.
Ji, Assalamu alaikum. Good evening, Ji. Good evening, Irfan sahab.
Wa alaikum assalam.
I hope that you enjoyed yesterday's session.
Yeah. Yesterday's sessions were good.
Hello, Amal.
Good evening, Sister Amal.
Hello, Ali. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
I'm on time, aren't I?
Yeah, yes, yeah, you're perfect. I mean, you're 8 minutes earlier, so that's all right.
Ali, shall I have these 10 minutes? I'll come back soon.
Sure. You have, yes, you can, yeah, please. Hello, Angia. Can you hear me?
Halo.
Assalamu alaikum, Angia. Can you hear me?
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Finally, I don't know why it is still the circle and everything. Okay, that's great.
You should be able to turn on your video. Can you try?
That's why I don't know how, because it's I don't know what happened.
Wait, because it
Yeah.
okay. Let me try something.
Yeah, I cannot
You
find
cannot turn.
anything. Usually it's there is a menu then that I can switch on.
Yeah, I know. I think you.
Join as
Let me-
panelist or stay as attendee?
No, you must join as a panelist. I gave you that
Okay.
option. Can you? Yes, yes.
Even
I know. Wait.
Salman Saab, even I
Announce-
cannot turn my video on.
wait.
It says you cannot start your video because the host has stopped it.
Yeah. Okay. Irfan Saab, now you should be able to. And Angia, I think you should also be able to turn on your video.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, wait, because there is still what is it? Around and around the signal. I don't know.
Let's fix it. I'm going to make you co-host and then it should be all right.
I don't. There cannot. There are no action. I can.
Yeah. Now refresh. Now refresh. You should be able to join. You should be able to turn on the video now. You are co-host now. Angia.
I know. But there is no menu or something else that I can choose that my video will be. I will try in my mobile maybe.
It should. Do you on the bottom row? Do you don't see any video like options? Start video.
No, that's why no. Usually it's will be any option, the video on and off and etc. So many option, but here is when I touch, there's no options. I'm sorry. I will try to my mobile because this is I use my iPad. Maybe in my mobile I can use. I don't know.
Because on my end everything is all right. You are co-host.
Okay. Wait. This is then where? Oh, it is very sad.
Ali, you've blocked video for me again.
All right. I mean, yeah, you are now a co-host, so it should be all right.
Yep, I started the video now.
Thank you. Our first speaker is in the process of setting the video. She is the co-host. We're just waiting for that to
I'm
sorting out.
sorry. Wait.
That's all right. We will.
Sorry.
We have no. That's all right. Take your time. We have. We are waiting for more participants to join, so that's perfectly all right.
Yeah. Okay. Fine.
Inge, can you leave and join again?
Yeah, I tried. Wait.
Yeah, you leave and then join again using the link. I mean, it was a specific link in the email. Yeah.
Okay. Wait. Yes.
Please try
So
that.
this. Okay. Mhm.
Recording in
So I joined with my another device. Okay. I
All
will.
right. All right.
I will leave it.
So,
Even
you,
I cannot leave it in my iPad.
okay, let me try to help you. You have to leave on one of the device, otherwise it will be echo.
Okay.
Or you can make that mute on the device which you earlier joined.
Wait. I prepare it. Since I have to change of my.
Yeah, sure. That's all right. We are waiting.
So Ali.
Yeah. Does it help?
You cannot start your video because the host can disable it.
Okay. Please try now.
Okay. Yes. Right. What?
Right. Now we have to manage your earlier because you are logged in twice. So we just have to remove the.
Okay. I will back to my earlier device. Wait. Yeah. Because I
Sure.
just put it in outside.
That's all right.
Okay. Even I cannot leave it. I
Okay.
don't know what
Let
happened
me-
with this.
Okay, let me put it away, remove pin, and then bring it here. Add pin. Can you start the video and say something?
No, it is so, I don't know, it's
Because we just saw your video. I'm going to remove your other.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. It will be echoing.
All right. Yeah, we can see your
Yeah.
video.
Yeah. Okay, the earlier, can you remove it?
Yeah. All right. It should be all right now. I already also put mute from here from my end.
Okay, fine.
So that should be all right now.
Okay.
We can see your name, but that will not disturb us now. Yeah, we can see your video, and that's great.
Mhm. I'm now in the quarantine.
Oh, okay.
All right.
We still hear the echo from your side. Yeah. All right. Try now, please.
Yes, good. Okay. Ready?
Okay, great. Yeah, this looks all right now.
Yeah. I'm sorry because I'm just in a room, so this is not a very good lighting. I mean, I know. And then
Yeah,
quarantine. Okay.
it's good enough. I think it's good enough.
Okay, fine. I will also look for the good light. Wait.
Okay, can we start, Engya? Yeah, you can unmute yourself.
Yes. Sorry.
Okay, great. Assalamu alaikum, and good morning and good evening and good afternoon. And welcome to the second day of 8th International Islam and Liberty Network Conference, which is being organized online. And this is the second day. We had a very informative and engaged discussions yesterday, and we are looking forward to another engaging and insightful day of discussions on important issues that confront the Muslim majority countries today. In this conference, our partners include Network for Free Society, Islamic Renaissance Front, based in Malaysia, FATAYAT NU, Indonesia, and Center for Study of Secularism and Society, India, and many of other fellows and partners who have helped in making this conference a reality. In today's session, we will begin with a keynote speech by Anggia Ermarini. Anggia is from Indonesia. She is a member of House of Representatives of Indonesia, and she's also a journal chairman of FATAYAT NU, Nahdlatul Ulama, which is the world's largest Muslim organization. And I'm pleased to acknowledge that she was our host and partner during the 7th International Conference, which we organized in Jakarta in 2019. And we are very happy to see her back with us. And in the meanwhile, she became a member of Parliament of Indonesia. So that's great news. And after her keynote, we will go into academic presentations. Today, we will have presentations by our speakers on Arab Spring, on secularism and freedom of religion in Turkey, on situation in Muslims in India, on Islamophobia, and on Islamic epistemology. So we have a range of discussion today, and we're looking forward to the presentations and as well as question and answers. I'd also like to acknowledge the presence of the chairman of Islam and Liberty Network Council, Muhammad Amin, who is there with us. Thank you, Amin, also for being here. So I'm going to give you a floor, Anggia. You will have about 30 minutes to share your thoughts or presentation, and then we will have a discussion. The topic is Women, Religion and Politics in Indonesia, Experience of NU. The floor is yours, Anggia.
Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wala hawla wala quwata illa billah, amma ba'du. Thanks, Ali, for the invitation and also I know this is the second day and of course, a lot of thought already discussed and also a lot of ideas already discussed. And I just want to share you all the experience of FATAYAT Nahdlatul Ulama and also women. FATAYAT NU is a women's wing organization under Nahdlatul Ulama. So I'm sorry because I can share my screen. So if possible, the host also help me to share my slides if possible. If cannot, I will read by myself here. I'm sorry. While Nahdlatul Ulama was born earlier than Indonesia, actually, and it was founded in 1926. And then after this, 19 years later, Indonesia nation became independent. And you emerge the order to maintain the understanding of Aswaja, Ahli Sunnah wal Jama'ah, is a moderate and tolerant and also, what is it? Moderate Islam. And the main manifestation of law for the homeland. So the existence of Nahdlatul Ulama is very contributing to become an important part of the independence of the Indonesian nation. The birth of Nahdlatul Ulama will also respond to the development of Wahhabi teachings in Mecca and Medina at that time, which prohibited the pilgrimage of graves and then destroyed historical Islamic sites and even planned to destroy the tomb of Prophet at that time. Therefore, the founding fathers of NU formed the Hijaz Committee. The ulama formed the Hijaz Committee, a committee led by K. Haji Wahab Hasbullah to negotiate to King Saud at the time in the Hijaz Arab Saudi at that time around 1924 and 1925. As a religious and social organization, Nahdlatul Ulama is very concerned with women's issue. Therefore, since its birth in 1926, no need a long time, Muslimat Nahdlatul Ulama is the elder women of Nahdlatul Ulama was born in 1946, and then FATAYAT Nahdlatul Ulama in 1950. The FATAYAT NU is where I'm now the chairperson. And then the IPPNU is the student association, also formulated in 1945. And then COPRI is the student college association, also formed in 1967. All are oriented toward the advancing and new values, including friendly, moderate, and tolerant Islam. Why it's not only one wing of women's organization, because Nahdlatul Ulama is very huge number, and so many women also half of the member of Nahdlatul Ulama. So this is very, very important for us important for Nahdlatul Ulama to decide it by the community. Community here means by age, just like FATAYAT NU is from 20 to 45 age of women under the Nahdlatul Ulama. Until today, the role of women, NU women through its Banom, it's okay. Yes, okay. Yeah, the role of NU women. Thank you. Until today, through its Banom includes strengthened gender mainstreaming. This is our issue. And then as a strategic issue, community strengthening, religious voices, education, network, ummah harmony, and also accompaniment. This is the point issue that we work. All of the women, not only NU, but all of women under women organization under the Nahdlatul Ulama. And so far, NU has consistently built interfaith and also intrafaith harmony. The foundation of Nahdlatul Ulama interfaith is Ukhuwah Islamiyah, Ukhuwah Ubudiyah, and Ukhuwah Wataniyah. While interfaith is based on humanity, nationality, and respect to each other. NU's religions and national roots stem from its values, tasamuh, tawasut, and also tawazun and i'tidal. Therefore, the four pillars of Indonesia nationality are also in line with the Nahdlatul Ulama principles. NU politics is not practical and pragmatic politics, more precisely in politic of Rahmatan lil Alamin, the basic of Islam as a religion of peace-loving, humanity as the foundation of interreligious harmony. Hubul Waton Minal Iman is Hubul Waton Minal Iman is in our language is nationalism is part of Islam, part of Iman. Not only loving country, not only loving country, but also nationalism is a part of our Iman. Indonesia is not religion country, but a religious country. Majority protect minority, while minority respect majority, and also Islam, just like Islam Nusantara ideas. I will come to, this is the rule of it's very small, I'm sorry. Okay, can you maximize? Yes, okay. This is what we call, okay. Yeah, I already talking about this, but what is the pillars of Nahdlatul Ulama, tasamuh, tawazun, and i'tidal. And this is the what is the ideas of the politics of Islam rahmatan lil alamin, al-NU. Islam as a religion of peace, loving, la ikhrati fiddin. There is no completion of religion. And then, as I told you before, humanity as the foundation of interreligious harmony. And then hubul waton minal iman. It is love the motherland, nationalism, as in my word. And then also Islam is not religion country, but religious country. We are in Indonesia, we have 6 religion that the state already protect, and then majority protect minority, and the minority respect to majority. This is our values also. Islam Nusantara and harmonization of Islamic theological value with the culture. The culture as a foundation to build the religion. So culture is very strong in every country. We have our own culture, and the ideas of Islam Nusantara and how the culture, how the human being is respect to the culture, and then build the religion after by the foundation of the culture. Next slide. Yes, this is the FATAYAT NU today. We are in 34 provincial level. We have one national level, as I am and the chairperson, not chairman, not chairwoman, but chairperson. Yeah, and we are every 5 years we have a election, just like Congress. Because of this pandemic, it should be last year, but we will be do the Congress next year. I would like happy if you are also attend to my Congress next year, maybe in May, inshallah. And we have 400 district level. This is we call it a branches level. And this is all of we have a board at that we have a board or office at that districts, and we have 2,000 of sub-district level. This is sub-district level. We call it sub-district. We call it in bahasa anak cabang. And then we have 21,000 and 220, I don't know how to spell it, village level. So we have a board, we have a office in a village level, and we also have 12 special branches across the world. In some of country, just like in Pakistan, and then in Morocco, in Azerbaijan, in Saudi Arabia, in Egypt, etc. So not only not only in Indonesia, but also in out of country. Usually they are the student or person who work in other country. FATAYAT and strengthens its networks, of course, because we have a structure from the national level to the village level. And role models, we have mostly FATAYAT and together is as referees in their community. They are a teacher, they are the imam, they are the ustadah, they are the motivator or facilitator in their own community. And they are also the cadres in the legislative and also in executive board, like governance in the province level, in and then like yes, governor in the district level and also in the parliament. This is our if we're talking about politics, if we're talking about religion, how to interfere, how to advocate. We use this cadre, this network to work together, and then practice that blend with this the practices that blend with the national culture. And then we have just like the traditions, what is it? Traditions, culture. Just the tradition culture is very, very strong, because naturally in every village they have they just like religious gathering, that from this occasion or this gathering we use, or we are talking about the issue of value that we want to send or to deliver to the community. Just like now we are talking about the anti-radicalism, or we talking about the health of women and the children. We talking about how to have the good to protect our children, to have early marriage, etc. Is this is the what is it, religious gathering in a village level is one of media, one of a channel for us to deliver the values or the message that you want to give to the community. And then just like the reconciliation, we in Indonesia, we have a very strong culture to have the reconciliation and the what is it, in the community. So that the kind of religious or gathering will be media, or will be the what is it, the media to engage, to help together in the community. And if we just like in our experience, that every year we but now we working with virtual, of course, because of the pandemic. We this month, the end of this November, we have just like a consolidation, national consolidation to decide or to deliver the issue and the issue not only for the our organization, but how to advocate to the government in the national level, and also in the district or province level. So from the national consolidation, we just list, or we just discuss what the kind of the strategic issue that we have to work together with the cadre of FATAYAT and UNOT in the all areas. So this strategy, or this potential of FATAYAT in all of level become very strong to advocate, especially because of our focus is for children and women. So we focus on that areas. It's like the issue of radicalism now is women and children, and become very trend in Indonesia, or maybe in other world also, globally maybe. And also issue of health now, issue of pandemic, and also the issue of because of pandemic now, the early marriage is increased very high. It is this issue is we work together, and then we also talking about the the stakeholder, just like the government in national level and government in province and district level. So in short, with the network that we have, but in FATAYAT NU, in a legislative or in a parliament, I mean, and also in an executive board and other stakeholders that have a very strategic to help the issue that we focus on. This is what we already do with all of the member of FATAYAT NU. And also one thing that we have to always become one of mainstreaming is the prior of our work is dakwah. I mean, how to deliver the value of Islam, the value of Islam rahmatan lil alamin to our community. It is so very, I'm sorry. It is we are very thankful because of Indonesia. We live in Indonesia, where the country where we are as a women can do anything. I mean, I can be a politician, and I can be a governor, I can be a leader of a nation or whatever. I can be the policeman and entrepreneur and everything, and we can also work without anger or without fear as strong. So we just last 2 years ago or 3 years ago, we have a conference, the Muslim women in forum, that we try to get the best practices that we have due to our society. I think this is my talk, the experience of FATAYAT Nahdlatul Ulama. The member of FATAYAT now is 10 million throughout Indonesia. So all of women and all of young women, I mean, not elderly women, and we are very active in the society. Every day they have, if we see in the national level to the village level, every day they have their own activity, and they work together with the community. Mostly the cadre or the facilitator or the board of FATAYAT NU in the village level, in the ground level, they are the place there where the people asking something. So as give the recommendation and give the answer of the life of a problem. This is a short of the experience of FATAYAT NU. Maybe after this, Ali, maybe there is a question from the floor. Thank you. Wallahu muwaffiq ila aqwamit thoriq. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you so much, Anggia, for a very informative presentation about the work of FATAYAT NU. And it's amazing to see it's spread across the country, and I'm sure it has a deep impact on the social composition and the political role of women in Indonesia. We do have a couple of questions, and I'm going to read them for you. So the first question, Amin, would you like to speak in your, do you like to?
It's okay, you can read it. I wrote it out in full.
Right, so this is a question by Muhammad Amin. I understand that in Indonesia, by law, each Indonesian citizen must belong to one of the listed officially approved religions. What happens if an Indonesian citizen stops believing in God, becomes an atheist, and no longer a member of any of the approved religions? Would you like to answer that question? Thank you.
Yes, this is still very debatable in our country, but now is no, now the government already open, and there are some of the option of the if I'm not mistaken, that they are already the option that they have other believers. For example, we have six. Yes, we have a six religion: Islam, and then Catholic, Christian, Protestant, and then Buddha, Hindus, and also Confucius, and one more is other beliefs. So this is one of what is it? One of not specific, very specific. Even we know not only one and two, still a lot of kind of beliefs that in Indonesia. Especially the come to the culture of Indonesia. So this is our, this is also our work. I mean, FATAYAT also still also always invites the other believers, not only six religion that already registered by government. Yeah.
Thank you. And another question from Irfan.
Okay. Yes.
Are Muslims in Indonesia allowed to convert to another religion?
To what?
To another religion. Are Muslims in Indonesia allowed to convert to another religion?
Convert to
another religion. If they want to leave Islam and adopt another religion, is it allowed?
No, I'm sorry. I don't understand
Let me ask the question in my words. Can a Muslim in Indonesia decide to stop being a Muslim and become a Hindu?
Yes. Yes. Can.
Okay.
There is no punishment. Yeah.
All right.
Right.
Thank you. I have a question which I wanted to ask. I understand that Nahdlatul Ulama, but also other organizations, when it comes in Indonesia, when it comes to role of women in the interpretation of religion, women as ulama and women as a theologian have played a very important role, and they are active in religious discourse. This is different because historically, in Islamic history, we are not aware of women as mufassir or women as interpreters of religion. But I think your organization has played an important role in encouraging women in this field. Would you like to share some thoughts and the experience and how it is even received by the conventional male members of society, and what is the source of, what does the situation look like in Indonesia with that? This respect?
Okay. Yes. Yes. In Indonesia, women has for me as a very good position in this what is it, in this areas. I mean, women who have capacity to be a mufassir, for example, to be the interpreter of Quran and Hadith. They can talk, and then they can also give the ideas and know there is no boundaries very hard. Even actually in the Nahdlatul Ulama, mostly in men in the central board, but that's why we have the wings that the women can also do that their own activity, and also the actualization of the to give something to contribute to the community. And also, as not only one, there are a lot of ulama, women's ulama, and we have also Kupi is the association of the ulama of women of Indonesia. Is very good, and they are all scholars. They are all scholars. Me myself is not scholars of Islam, but they are all scholars, and they are very brilliant of the talk of when we talk when they are talk about the Islam teaching, Islamic teaching. And also in Indonesia, just like in the very beginning of the formulation, the form of FATAYAT NU is to give the education, actually in the very first what the beginning of the build of FATAYAT NU is how the women in under the member of Nahdlatul Ulama can go to the school. Even in the pesantren, pesantren is pesantren not before. Pesantren is only for white men, but after the FATAYAT NU form, and then pesantren can the women or girls can go to the pesantren. So for the talk of the women's, it is very good. I mean, we can express, we can have a debate, we can have a discussion, and also we can as long as they have the capacity, of course. And the women here in Indonesia, women scholars of women of Islamic scholars especially, and they have the space. They have a space to express or to give their own idea. And I don't know, this is maybe some resource person here can confirm of this. Before the Egypt, therefore in Cairo, they have the education for women. Some of the initiative is from the Sumatra Barat, Minangkabau. This the one of area in Indonesia that they came to Cairo to study, and then they also after on they also receive the women student. But I don't know. This is only the end. But we are and women's Indonesia is very open. Yeah.
Thank you for your detailed answer. We have a few minutes, and if anyone wants to, from the speaker, want to also intervene, I'm seeing Ali Hassania and from Iran. I don't know if you would like to share anything from this topic, women and religion in Iran, or any other question from our other speakers. All right, I think I don't see any further questions and comments, Angia. So I would like to thank you for your time. I know you
Thank
recently
you.
traveled from Scotland and you arrived in Jakarta this morning, and it's already late in Jakarta. So, or I don't know if you're in Jakarta or anywhere else in Indonesia. I'm just assuming you're there. And I really appreciate your taking of time and partnering with us. And I hope that we can continue these discussions, and you should maybe also continue to inspire in other countries similar work. So
Thank you, Ali.
thank you so much. And with this, we will move on. Already, I can see our next speaker, but maybe we should start in about 4 minutes precisely from now, because our time is 12:50 p.m. GMT time. So we'll be beginning in 4 minutes.
We can have some trial if you want, Ali.
Okay, Amal, great. Yeah. So let me see if everything is working all right.
1 minute. I'm gonna.
Yes. Okay. Amal, please try your video.
Can you see me?
Perfect. Yes. And Raza.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay,
Assalamu alaikum.
great. Assalamu alaikum, Raza. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Great to see you.
I'm here.
Wow, you have changed since we last met.
Change depends on what you mean by the word change.
Well, you know, at least you have grown a beard. That's the visible change.
That's as long as it will remain, Ali, not more than that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. Let me see our third speaker, Oslim. I don't see her yet. Let me find her. Right, so let me begin with this session. We have our first two speakers already in the panel. We have Raza Naeem from Pakistan. Raza is a social scientist and an award-winning translator and a book critic. He has been trained in political economy from the University of Leeds in UK and in Middle Eastern history and anthropology from the University of Arkansas. He has engaged with the Middle East since last 2 decades now, and widely traveled in and reported from Egypt, Yemen, and Turkey for the last decade or so. So very knowledgeable about the area and about the developments which is happening in the region. Raza is going to speak on the rebirth of hope in Arabia Felix, Arab Jacobins. That's this first part of the title. Raza, would you like to take the floor and share your thoughts or presentation?
Yes, thank you very much, Ali, and thank you very much to the organizers of this conference for giving me an opportunity to talk about a quite depressing topic, to be very honest, as is much of the news from the Arab world in general, and dare I say the Muslim world in particular. And I have a PowerPoint presentation which I will share with you, if you allow.
Yes, please.
And then we can take it from there. How do I do this? I have a presentation. How do I share it, please?
You must have a share screen option.
Yes, thank you. I have it. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Great. Yeah, it is. Yes,
Is it
we can see
visible?
your presentation now.
So actually, there was a question mark at the end of Arab Jacobins, which somehow got eliminated when I said, by the time it reached the organizers, and it was there for good reason, because it was a question I was asking myself when I was working on this presentation, and as I researched, and this is a question which I am also putting to the audience, and the subtitle of the presentation is of course the rebirth of hope in Arabia Felix. And as anyone who knows anything about the Arab world, Arabia Felix is the old Roman name for this whole area, which we now call Yemen. And obviously it means happy Arabia in Latin. But the news from Yemen is hardly happy, unfortunately. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to begin with some general remarks about what has gone on in the Arab world more or less since the last decade. I mean, Arab Spring is certainly not the title I would use for these uprisings. I mean, journalists usually, have this habit of coining catchphrases, which without any research. And, these catchphrases often go out of season. And of course, after spring, we have autumn and we also have winter, so things can hardly remain the same. So as the citizens of the Arab world are now finding out. So this is not a phrase I prefer to describe events in the Arab world. And then I'm going to talk about the subject at hand, which is the tragedy which we now call Yemen. So the 2011-2012 Arab uprisings, which have succeeded in toppling tyrants in Tunisia, Egypt, and Yemen, and a genuinely popular leader in Libya, this is my own contention, are still in a state of flux. It must be remembered also that this is not the first time that popular mobilizations have occurred in the Arab world. In the 1950s and 60s, beginning with Egypt, it was the nationalist military which emancipated the country from foreign domination, as well as local clients of the latter, while popular mobilizations happened later on from below. And the pattern was to be repeated across the Arab world. You had popular military coups in Iraq, in Syria, in then North Yemen, and Libya, and given added impetus and support by the success of the Algerian resistance against the French in 1962, and then a victory for the communists in South Yemen against the British 5 years later in 1967. So that was a tremendously hopeful period in Arab politics, However, the key difference between the events of the 1950s and 60s and what is happening now in the Arab world as we meet is that in the latter case, it is the people who basically liberated themselves from this militarized model of a one-party state, which came to dominate the Arab world since the last 4 decades. And in my humble opinion, the Arab uprisings are more reminiscent of the revolutions of 1848 that struck fear in the hearts of every European monarch, from the Bourbons to the Austro-Hungarian Empire. This comparison is more apt, in my opinion, for example, than the preferred comparison in the mainstream Western media with the anti-communist uprisings of Eastern Europe in 1989. And the reason is that the 1848 revolts, like the Arab revolts, occurred in long cycles going over decades. In the case of the former, the longue durée from the time of the French Revolution in 1789 to 1848 adopted liberty, equality, and fraternity as its slogans, while in the latter case, the period in Arab history which inaugurated the uprisings of the 1950s came full circle with the Arab Spring uprisings, so to speak, of 2011. Also, like the European counterparts, the Arab uprisings are also about liberty, equality, and fraternity, or were about liberty, equality, and fraternity. The Arab masses want freedom from decades of oppressive dictatorship. They wanted social and economic justice from the emissarizing policies of the World Bank, IMF, and European Union imposed by these dictatorships, and wanted so for all the Arab people beyond national frontiers. This last aspect is exemplified by the rapidity and spontaneity with which the revolutionary infection spread from tiny Tunisia to Egypt, and from Egypt across the Arab East. Even the Gulf states are not spared. So now from the general to the specific, let me come to the case of Yemen, which really has been underreported since the uprisings broke there in February 2011, exactly 10 years ago. And I mean, what is going on in Yemen is really a huge tragedy. And as you know, what happened last week in Lebanon, it only took a statement from the Lebanese information minister for the entire Gulf countries to rally around Saudi Arabia. And really, these things tend to blank out the fact that at the moment as we speak, the richest country in the Arab world, that is Saudi Arabia, is bombing the poorest country in the Arab world, a neighbor, which happens to be Yemen. So, like the European revolts of 1848, the first round of the Arab Spring went to the people. And like the former, the counter-revolution was very quick to assert itself, first in the shape of the imperialist invasion of Libya, and then the brutal crushing of the uprising in Bahrain. And of course, in Syria, there is continuing counter-revolution because there are state actors, many different states, and non-state actors. They're all part of the mess which is right now in Syria. So while the mainstream media in the West continues to take an interest in the fate of the Arab uprisings in the larger states, like Tunisia, I think one of my fellow participants will be talking about Tunisia next, like Egypt, like Syria and Libya. In at least 2 cases, the reporting on the uprising and the oppression which has been inflicted against the protesters has totally vanished. One, of course, is Bahrain. We hardly hear anything about what has happened in Bahrain. And the other case, of course, is the case of Yemen, about which I'm going to talk about in a moment. So, of course, Yemen, as I mentioned just a few minutes earlier, is the poorest state in the Arab world, and it is sometimes very unfairly mentioned as the birthplace of Al-Qaeda. The country until recently was ruled by a nasty dictator called Ali Abdullah Saleh, who had been little more than a Saudi American stooge in his entire tenure. I mean, he ruled Yemen for more than 30 years. When protests spontaneously broke out in Yemen against Abdullah Saleh's regime in 2011, following the victorious uprising in Tunisia. The dictator responded by brutally crushing the protest movement on one hand and dallying over handing power to a successor. I think some historical background will be necessary here, because Yemen right now is there are many issues. I mean, from mainstream media, it may be one may be forgiven for thinking that the only conflict in Yemen is a religious conflict, which actually it is not. Between the Houthis, who are in power in Sana'a, and the government of Hadi, who the West and Americans back. But the situation is much more complex. Uh, so Abdullah Saleh by 2011 had become so unpopular that Yemen quickly became the only Arab country where protests became a daily occurrence. However, most of the mainstream media whitewashed this history of the country to paint it as a land of beards, burqas, and tribes and bombs. Yemen was two countries before its reunification in 1990. The north was ruled by the Ottoman Empire before the empire collapsed, giving way to a very medieval sort of an imamate, which ruled with an iron hand, claiming divine sanction, while the southern part of Yemen was a British colony. This began to change in the 1960s, because in both parts of Yemen, there were democratic uprisings which attempted to overthrow the Imam in the north and the British colonialism in the south, respectively in the 1940s and 1950s. Both the struggles bore fruit in the shape of first 1962 revolution in the north, when the Imam was overthrown by military officers who were impressed by Jamal Abdel Nasser, who, as you know, was the lodestar of the Arab world in the 1950s. So in 1960s, and followed 5 years later by a very successful armed struggle by a Marxist group calling itself the later on became the Yemeni Socialist Party, the National Liberation Front, which took over the leadership of the nationalist struggle and threw out the British, proclaiming a Marxist republic in the country, the only time in the history of the Arab world anywhere that a Marxist republic had been proclaimed. The north soon descended into a tribalist republic. In the south, serious reforms were carried out, like female emancipation. I think I've just listened to Ali talking to the Indonesian speaker about female empowerment. So this was happening in the south of Yemen. Burqas were publicly burned in the streets of Aden, the capital of the south. There was land reform and free provision of health, education, and housing. However, as a result of factional struggles and partly as a result of Saudi interference, no serious alternative to the status quo took place in Yemen, and there was a hasty reunification of the country, so-called, brought about with Saudi and American blessings to counter the plucky little godless People's Republic in the south. And Ali Abdullah Saleh, who already was president of the north of Yemen, came along with this package deal. So he basically became the president of this whole unified country called Yemen. Now, I basically was a graduate student in the United States in 2010. So I decided to visit Yemen because I got really disturbed, like everybody else, reading frequent reports in the mainstream media about a massive Al-Qaeda presence in that country. And I had written before I visited Yemen that, what is basically what the West is doing about Yemen when it talks about Yemen, the likes of Thomas Friedman in the New York Times or Shadi Hamid, they basically talk about Yemen as if Yemen actually has no history. It's an ahistoric country and grossly generalized Yemen. And this image of Yemen, has become and became a staple of mainstream media following the arrest of a Nigerian bomber who wanted to bomb a flight to Detroit and who had spent time in Yemen at the same time in 2010. So in May 2010, I got a chance to visit that country on the eve of the 20th anniversary of that country's unification. And I was warned by many friends not to travel to the south due to security reasons, but I chose to disregard it and went to Aden, which is the biggest, city in the south and the former capital of the People's Democratic Republic of South Yemen. And I actually was not prepared for what I saw upon my arrival. This was a country where I mentioned just a few minutes earlier, women were publicly burning burqas in the streets of Aden, and women were to be found in every walk of life. When I went there in 2010, there were hardly any women to be found on the streets, except the ones in burqas. And I later on met some of the leaders of the Yemeni Socialist Party. This is the reincarnated National Liberation Front of Yemen, which took power there in 1967, about how this retreat actually happened. From a place which was teeming with women who were leading from the front in every walk of life in the south, and now you can hardly find any women except in the university. So how did it come to pass? And they confessed their helplessness to defending even their own legacy in the south in the face of Saudi clerics, who were sent specially from across the border with the encouragement of the ex-dictator Saleh. In fact, the situation in the south right now is that there is an openly secessionist mood, because the reunification in 1990, which was much trumpeted, was simply meant the importation of the northerners into the south, and their subsequent takeover of the land, property, and colonial villas belonging to the southerners. I mean, the situation which practically existed here in United Pakistan before Bangladesh became an independent country in 1971. I was reminded of that from my discussions with the Yemeni leaders. So it's routinely claimed that Al-Qaeda, AQIP has a presence in Yemen, and I tried to find about that during my visit. And this skepticism extends to the uprising against Saleh in the north. And this uprising has not really addressed the plight of the South so far. So I asked around about the Al-Qaeda presence, and I was told off very politely. However, when I persisted in my inquiry, a deputy to the YSP leader beckoned me to come nearer and whispered in my ear. I mean, I could speak some broken Arabic at that point. So what I could understand, I'm sharing with you. He said, the office of Al-Qaeda in Yemen is located in a tiny building next to the presidential compound. This is basically what my ears heard. And I've written about this. In other words, the ex-dictator Abdullah Saleh blackmailed the West regarding Al-Qaeda in return for money. The Al-Qaeda presence in the country is still no more than a few hundred people, and it has been vastly exaggerated. During the last days of Saleh's dictatorship, the Yemeni army deliberately laid down arms in many southern areas to let this exaggerated Al-Qaeda presence capture whole towns to create an image of chaos. I mean, Al-Qaeda is hardly the issue in Yemen right now. There are other issues, but Al-Qaeda is not one of them. Despite reneging on earlier promises to step down, Saleh agreed to allow elections to be held in mid-February 2012 to pave the way for a successor in return for immunity from prosecution for himself and his family. This was the preferred Saudi-American solution to ensure that a real structural transformation does not take place in Yemen. And there is considerable distrust regarding both the Saudi and American roles in destabilizing democracy in Yemen on the streets of Sana'a, especially among the youth. At the time of writing, the Islamist Islah Party constitutes the largest opposition party in Yemen. And if elections were to be held now, I mean, elections have actually not been held in Yemen, despite a lot of pious homilies, they would win the maximum seats, just like their counterparts in Tunisia, the Al-Nahda, and of course Egypt, the Ikhwan al-Muslimun. The elections basically in Yemen did achieve little apart from electing an incumbent vice president as the country's next leader, who we now call a President Hadi of Yemen. I mean, only one candidate was allowed in the presidential election, and that was the person who is now occupying the presidential chair. Who is basically ruling from Saudi Arabia. He's not even in charge of the whole country. And his only claim to legitimacy is that he is supported by the Americans, the Saudis, and the so-called international community. So he's someone who has been part of the dictator Saleh's coterie, and he became president of the country after Saleh's resignation. Now, an interesting footnote to this dismal situation in Yemen was provided in late 2011 when the Nobel Peace Prize recognized the efforts of one of Yemen's leading protesters, Tawakkul Karman, and made her a co-recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize. And Tawakkul Kurman was the brave lady who protested every day in the public square in Sana'a, the Tahrir Square, refusing to leave and join her husband and children until Saleh resigned from power, which he basically did. And unfortunately, Tawakkul Kurman is actually now in Istanbul. Even conditions are so unsafe for a Nobel Peace Prize winner like Tawakkul Kurman to be in her native country. So the question is whether Yemen, the situation in Yemen is still in a state of flux. 30 million people in Yemen, more than 20 million are at a serious, risk of, mass starvation. We only talk about Afghanistan, but the problem in Yemen precedes what's happening in Afghanistan. We did not have to contend with the coronavirus. Now there is coronavirus in Yemen. Whoever wins eventual power in Yemen as a result of this process has an urgent task of healing the country, since it is possible for Yemen to go the Bangladesh route, meaning that the south can still become an independent country. I mean, the southerners only are cooperating with Mr. Hadi because Hadi now claims that the bigger threat is against this powerful social movement which actually captured Sana'a, who known as the Ansarullah or the Houthis. I mean, the Houthis are not terrorists, by the way. Thanks God, when Biden came to power as president, one of the first things he did as president was to stop this designation which Trump had designated the Houthis as a terrorist group. It's not a terrorist group, it is as much of a terrorist as Hezbollah is in Lebanon. And of course, Hezbollah is part of the parliamentary process in Lebanon. How can you label a social movement which has broad-based support in Yemen as a terrorist group? Beggars belief. So as I have warned before, Yemen has a history of uprisings and revolutions, both in the north and south, and the agendas of both the Republican Revolution and the Socialist Revolution are still unfulfilled more than 60 years on. That is the only way the promise of unity can be realized, short of pandering to Saudi-US plans of continuing with the protectorate status under Saleh. Protectorate of Saudi Arabia. As I speak, the country is under a state of siege. It is being bombed every day by Saudis. And when the Houthis retaliate by those missiles, it is claimed that the Saudis face a national security threat from the poorest country in the Arab world. I mean, unfortunately, because the Saudis have got petrodollars and world public opinion on their side, the mainstream media totally kowtows to this belief, that the Saudis actually face a national security threat from the poorest country in the Arab world. Mohammed bin Salman, the crown prince of Saudi Arabia, has blood of thousands of innocent Yemenis on his hands. And in any decent court of law, he would be tried as a war criminal, So Yemenis continue to suffer from the worst of every world. So concluding my presentation, the people of Yemen will not be content for a very long time, and it is this promise which gives hope that the country may not yet turn into another Saudi vassal state. Events in the Arab world, therefore, are in a state of flux, but what cannot be denied is the fact that the Arabs have a long and deep historical consciousness. They may be oppressed, they may be jailed, they may be beaten, tortured, and humiliated, but they will always eventually rise up against oppression and injustice. The Arab uprisings also proved that when one loses their fear of death, the people can work miracles with great dignity and courage. I would like to end my presentation with a beautiful, verse from the great Syrian poet Adonis, who is one of the greatest living writers of Arabic and frequently mentioned as a possible Nobel Prize winner for literature. I'm desperate to conclude on a hopeful note. And of course, we resort to poetry because poets cannot be bought. Good poets flee into exile and they continue writing good poetry. Same is the case with Adonis. The poets carry the hopes of the people. So I quote Adonis, "A time between ashes and roses is coming, when everything shall be extinguished, when everything shall begin." End quote. And on this poetic note, I would like to conclude this otherwise very dismal story of a country and a people which deserve better. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you so much, Raza. Thank you so much for sharing your well-researched presentation with us. I'm sure there are many questions and comments in our colleagues, which they will be referring to you. I see Amin want to ask something. And Amin, would you like to say something? And then we will move on to the next presentation.
Yes, my question for Raza. You mentioned outside interference on many occasions by the USA and Saudi Arabia. Unless I missed it, I never heard you mention the name of Iran.
Well, yes, because my sources in Yemen tell me that this is a frequent refrain of the, I mean, look, this conflict is not a sectarian conflict. I think I mentioned that the problem in Yemen is not a sectarian conflict. It becomes a sectarian conflict whenever Saudi Arabia intervenes in any part of the Arab world. In Bahrain, the conflict was about democracy. They said no Shia, no Sunni. We are Bahrainis. The minute Saudis crossed from the bridge into Bahrain, it became a sectarian conflict. In Pakistan, we have suffered a lot from Saudi intervention. I'm not talking about Pakistan here. Similarly, wherever the Saudis have interfered, Iran is not a party to this conflict because the Houthis are an independent social movement who do not even believe in the imams of the Iranians. They are a Zaidi minority who basically, are a very peace-loving. And by the way, the ex-dictator of Yemen, Saleh, was also a Zaidi. The media will never tell you this. He was also a Zaidi. And these Houthis were allies of Saleh before Saleh turned on them. If you look at the WikiLeaks, expose of the deals which Saleh did with Houthis, unashamedly. So what I'm trying to tell you here is that contrary to the mainstream media hardly talks about these other issues of Yemen. Yemenis are a very peaceful lot. In Sana'a, Zaidis and Sunnis offer prayers together in their mosques. There is no conflict at all. But the minute Saudi Arabia, puts its dirty tentacles, I mean, so Yemen is a neighbor. For God's sake, the minute the Saudis interfere in any country, it becomes a sectarian conflict. It was not, and it is not a sectarian. The conflict in Yemen is about dread. It is about national self-determination. It is about democracy. Yemen is the only genuine democracy in this whole peninsula ruled by emirs, potentates, imams, kings, what have you. And the Saudis have a genuine interest in snuffing out this wonderful country which has genuine democratic roots going back to Yemen is not Bahrain. It's not an Arab island floating on oil and gas. It's not a tribe with a flag. It is a genuine country with a genuinely proud history of democracy. But the Saudis have always been at the forefront. Even when, if you look at the war of the 1960s, the Saudis were at the forefront of restoring the imamate, that regressive imamate, which was created so many problems for Yemen in the first place. So the problem is Iran is not supporting the Houthis. The Houthis basically, they became frustrated with the pace of the democratic process because, Saleh, resigned and he was replaced by another dictator. So they just came down from the mountains and seized power without any outside interference. And they have support.
Yeah. Thank you, Raza. I think you have explained your viewpoint very clearly. I would like to move to the next presentation, which is also about, the Arab Spring, especially about the case of Tunisia. And we'll come back to this discussion, Raza. We'll have some time later in the session also. Our next presentation is by Amal Azuz. She is a PhD researcher in political economy and teacher of English language and literature in Tunisian University. Formerly, she is also Secretary of State in charge of international cooperation in the Tunisian government, and she was the member of Tunisian National Constituent Assembly which was formed after the revolution or Arab Spring in Tunisia, as they call it. Amal is going to speak on the, her title of presentation is End of Democracy in Tunisia with a question mark. So we did not drop it. And I think in Reza's, your case also, it was unintentional to drop the question mark. But over to you, Amal. Can you please share your video?
I'm so sorry. Could you allow me because I'm trying, just a minute. I think you should allow me the camera, the video from your side, Ali.
Yeah, you have, you are
Yes,
the co-host.
I've been working on my laptop, and so it's not my laptop. I lost my I lost the page, and now I'm obliged to use my phone. So I'm using my phone. Could you please? I'm just pressing the button of starting the video, but in vain. Okay, Can you do something from your phone?
Yeah, let me try. Give me a minute. Yeah, let me try that, because you were previously a co-host. Yeah. From my side, you are the co-host already, Amal. So can you, from my admin panel, you are co-host.
Yeah, because I've been connecting from another from the laptop. I think this is the problem. That's why. It's not mine. Okay. I didn't know how to manage, so I moved immediately to my phone so that we won't waste time.
Yeah. I can. Let me try. Well, in my panel, you are seen as co-host, Amal, and I have not stopped videos access from my side. So I frankly do not.
Okay, can you give me 1 minute? I'm gonna try. Someone is here to help me.
Yes.
Huh? 1 minute,
we can
I'll come back to you.
Sure.
Yes, Ali, as far as I can see from looking at the participants list, Amal has the ability, according to this list, to use the video.
Yes. Yeah.
So sorry, I'm coming back soon.
I'm just checking in. Özlem, are you able to share your video and use your microphone? Özlem?
I can use my microphone and I can hear you.
Okay,
and we can see you.
Just wanted to check if everything is all right.
Okay, yes.
We'll be coming to your presentation after Amal's presentation.
All right.
She is just.
Shall I stop my video for better?
Yes, it's up to you. Yeah.
Ali, otherwise, if it is not possible for me to connect through the video, we can have it on audio, if you don't mind, of course.
Yes, of course you can go ahead, but I see, there's nothing I can do, actually, frankly speaking. You are already the co-host. So I think you should go ahead and start your presentation. I'm sorry, we are going to miss your video. That will be a loss for us, but.
You saw me at the beginning. That's fine. I think.
Yes,
we
saw you at the, yes. Yeah.
Sometimes things happen beyond us. Yes.
But I can hear an echo. Amal, are you signed in with two devices?
Because I still have the laptop here and I've been managing.
Oh, we lost her. Sorry, I think Amula is having some problems with reconnecting. Raza, there is a short question for you. If you,
Yes.
You can answer. Is it true that Husis consider themselves descendants of the Prophet, peace be upon him, and accordingly have the right to rule? Is that correct?
Well, the question is not really relevant to the presentation, but they did not become part of the political process citing their right to rule. They became part of the political process on a very secular thing, which you also appreciate, Ali, which is that the political process in Yemen had absolutely failed to take their grievances into account. I mean, they were pretty placid in their religious practice. They are from a very placid branch of Islam. They did not actually ever they actually never entertained this claim that they have a divine right to rule. It was the imams of the north who basically many years ago who basically claimed divine sanction, but not the Houthis.
Sure.
This is not a religious conflict. Once again, it is a conflict, old-fashioned conflict about democracy and rights, about representation.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for answering that. We have our speaker back in action. Amal, happy to see you back in audio and video. So why don't you start your presentation, Amal, please?
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm happy to be again with you. I'm happy to, and thank you for having me, Ali, again in your conference. It's been now 2 years since I came celebrating the, Salam alaikum, first of all, to everybody. Celebrating the Tunisian constitution, and particularly freedom of religion and freedom of belief in that constitution, because I am one of the, as you mentioned in your introduction, of between inverted commas, the founding mothers of this second republic, if we can call it, in Tunisia. And I'm sorry today to come and talk of because these are revolutions and transitions and democratic transition all over the world that are backward and forward and etc. But the problem is how to deal with what is happening. Your guests have been talking about counter-revolution. We are witnessing a kind of counter-revolution in Tunisia. This is my reading of how things have been taking place recently since the 25th of July. But because maybe our dear listeners and followers do not have a clear idea of the situation in Tunisia before the 25th of July, would you allow me, Ali, a few minutes to have a brief background of the situation in Tunisia? You all know that Tunisia was or has been hated as the only successful Arab democracy to emerge from the Arab Spring, from uprisings of 2011. It has adopted one of the best and most liberal and progressive constitutions, not only in the Arab world, but I dare say in the world. It has also achieved many milestones in terms of number one, human rights and freedoms, basic freedoms, freedom of speech, of the media, of freedom of belief, etc. In terms also of free and fair elections. 2 major free and fair legislative and presidential elections were held, 2014 and 2019, in addition to something unprecedented in the history of Tunisia, which is the local elections of 2018. In addition, of course, to the establishment of a representative democracy with the system of check and balances, which is very important. So this is the rosy, if you want, the positive side of the medal of the story. But in every story there is, however, and there is another side. And here, you all know that there was a kind of political instability during these 10 years. With 9 prime ministers and 11 governments in the span of the last 10 years, economic stagnation and accumulation of internal and external debts, social unrest, and this is very normal because of this shrinking of people's ability, let's say purchasing ability and purchasing power. another problem also, the proliferation of corruption, both financial and political corruption. Yesterday, I asked your guest, one of your guests, about the informal institutions in the Arab world and the developing countries. Clientelism, nepotism, all of these aspects of political, if you want, corruption are pervasive. You know, in Tunisia, the revolution has done nothing to manage and to deal with the distribution of power, socially speaking and economically speaking. We will see maybe at the end why things like this have happened, why there is no change. But let me first of all continue. I have, how much time do I have, Ali, by the way? I'm sorry to ask this now. 20 minutes, quarter of an hour?
In total 20 minutes, yeah. So you can,
okay,
yeah.
That's fine. That's fine. So you see, in a nutshell, democracy in Tunisia failed to deliver. To deliver. Your guest, the one guest preceding me, was speaking about the Arab Spring and the causes and the reasons behind the Arab Spring. One word which is a key word in Tunisians' revolution was dignity, and dignity in the way we understand it in Tunisia means especially job, employment, and food on the table. If you don't find this, this is dignity. So this grim context, there is a grim context, okay? There is, people would ask you, I was myself a deputy, and I was telling them, I'm drafting a constitution. They would say, what shall I do with the constitution? What shall I do with democracy? I want food on the table. So this same question is being repeated now. So within this grim context, this context has understandably fueled frustration, the 10 years, I mean, and disillusionment, and more dangerously, ire and grudge against the political class governing. Unfortunately, also, Mr. Qais Said, the president of the Republic, has taken advantage of these circumstances to do what? To further inflame the public opinion against the political class, against politicians, against parliamentarians, against judges, against businessmen, especially also against the media. Though he himself, he was part of the crisis, he contributed to this vicious circle, this deadlock, this political deadlock, especially during the last years of these last 2 years. Now, this is a brief, let's say, description. Now, the coup itself, the coup, on the night of the 25th of July, the president, in a unilateral interpretation of Article 80 of the Constitution, this article very, very briefly says the following, says when there is an imminent danger or imminent peril, the president of the Republic is allowed to take specific or exceptional procedures and measures while consulting with the head of the parliament, and keeping the parliament working and the government working, and at the same time fixing a timeline. Nothing of this was done. In a unilateral interpretation of Article 8, he announced the following: the suspension of the parliament with tanks. He deployed tanks. Tanks were deployed to in front of the parliament. He dissolved the government. There was a sort of power grab. He concentrated powers, if you want, the executive and the judicial and the legislative and the judicial powers in his office. And most importantly, and more dangerously than this, there was no timeline for this. Okay, people were in front of uncertainty, so there was no clear vision of the future of if we can come back to democracy or not, or when these exceptional measures will take an end. 2 months later, exactly in 2 months later, he issued a much more important and more dangerous document, which is the Presidential Decree 117 on the 22nd of September. It's a very condensed document, 23 articles. The most important things in this article issued by Mr. Said, he expressed a radical break with the Constitution of 2014. And he decided there is a decision to rule by decrees, by presidential decrees. In the Constitution, he kept only the preamble and the first two chapters. Why the first two chapters? Because they are dealing with freedoms and liberties. Because he was conscious of this resistance of people who would say, no, we won't accept any if you want, he needed to reassure, if you want, those who have been concerned and worried about the respect of liberties guaranteed by chapter 1 and 2. So he was cautious not to abolish them, which is, of course, which is between inverted commas ridiculous, because, you know, these articles 1 and 2, and I was there to one of those who drafted the Constitution, they are but declaration of rights, and the real implementation, the real guarantee of how these rights would be guaranteed in practice by the following articles about the judiciary, about the local authority, about the legislative authority, about the executive authority, about the independent entities. All of these would guarantee how these liberties and freedom would be, citizens would acquire. The decree, the presidential decree, also said something very, very dangerous. He said, it said, if the Constitution and the legal legitimacy goes against people's will, take care, people's will, because we'll go back to the question of populism afterwards. If anything in this Constitution goes against people's will, all procedures should be forsaken, and people's will should be kept, only people's will. And anything also in the Constitution which will contradict this decree number 117, it also, it is not accepted. It means decree 170 is above the Constitution. You know, the Kelsen pyramid was reverted top down. You know, the Constitution normally number 1, and then you have the organic laws, and then decrees. He put the decree number 1, and then he put the Constitution beneath everything else. Of course, it says in brief, Mr. Said, because of this decree 117, he was both. He declared himself both the executor and the legislator. At the beginning, he also put himself and declared himself to be the general prosecutor, but the judges and the judiciary, they called him into order. So he retreated back a little bit, and he declared himself only general counselor of the military courts only. So the coup in practice now, from the first days, I call this as a coup. Now that's on paper, on documents. In practice, how was this translated? He suspended, as I said, all of those state institutions, and then he suspended the work of independent entities, which were, of course, stated by the Constitution, such as the entity for the fighting corruption, number 1, the entity for checking the constitutionality of the laws, which is supposed to replace the Constitutional Court, because we have not yet finished, and Mr. Said was responsible for this. We have not yet established the Constitutional Court. He also tried, a few days after this, he started raising his voice against the high independent entity or committee for elections, EZ, we call it in Tunisia, EZ. This is very dangerous, you know, all of these, because it is precisely here that liberties and freedoms are compromised. At first, Mr. Said's measures were accepted and welcomed by large segments of Tunisian society who rejected the way liberal democracy was practiced. who, as I said earlier, were disillusioned because they thought they made the revolution to have food on the table. However, the revolution didn't bring food on the table. So you saw on the screens people coming out on the streets and celebrating. However, this is waning bit by bit, because the outcome has been paralysis. Up to now, there is but paralysis. And quickly, this enthusiasm evolved into a sort of fear and uncertainty. More than 3 months now, okay, there is a government, and if you will ask me questions about it, because I didn't like to include this in my paper, there is a real fear and uncertainty of the future. Mr. Said, to my mind, of course, is destroying the very idea of democracy since July 2025. The real danger is that Mr. Said is preparing the ground for any dictatorship, for the return of dictatorship. There is something else. The coup was translated in practice by something very, very dangerous, which is the army. The Tunisian army has always been apolitical. It has never been involved in politics, and this is a plus. This is one of the factors which helped the Tunisians succeed in the revolution, contrary to Egypt, for example, or to other Arab countries. It has always been apolitical and not involved in politics. Mr. Said, and this is very dangerous, he employed the army to implement his coup, just from the first, even before the coup. He was preparing for this with the army. On the 25th now, he claimed as I said, the judicial power for himself, but he was quickly called into order. However, he can still have the control over military justice, and he found niches through which he controls justice in general. Now, the civil liberties, your network, Islamic Liberty. Let me speak a little bit of civil liberties.
I'm sorry for the interruption. You have about 5 minutes to conclude.
Yeah. Only this is five minutes. Only there is no systematic repression. We cannot speak of systematic repression of the opposition of the coup, but the sum and the continuity of repressive incidents. Every day we have people banned from traveling, people, ordinary citizens, businessmen, politicians, parliamentarians, prevented from traveling. We have house arrests. We have civilian people being tried in front of military courts. So this is how there is a real fear and concern with liberties. Now, is democracy threatened? That's the answer. Yes, democracy is seriously threatened. Society excluded different national forces, unions, NGOs, parties. He doesn't believe in dialogue. He doesn't believe in consultation with those. He refused any sort of consultation with these. Tunisia today is at a very dangerous crossroads and a critical financial and economic social situation. However, there are glimpses of hope. And I finish here, Ali, if you don't mind. There are glimpses of hope, of course. Otherwise, if we don't have hope, we don't have life. Protests have not stopped against the coup, are growing both in size and number. Even those who agreed with Mr. Said's exceptional measures at the beginning, they are now growing impatient and suspicious with his perceived silence on how he will move forward, how he will deal with the situation. Civil society at the beginning, entities, they were very hesitant. Now, they didn't take a stand. Now, they are strongly calling for a participatory approach and warning against monopolizing power and decision-making. There is a growing consciousness of the necessity of a front which gathers both politicians, civil societies, trade unions, However, and I finish here, situation, the power of balance, the balance of power, I'm sorry, in Tunisia today is not clear. It is open. The situation in Tunisia is open to all possibilities. We can have Mr. Qais Said's populist, autocratic project may succeed, especially with the spread of populism and the way he speaks to people with a speech full of hatred and dividing the Tunisian people. There are scenarios for a solution coming from those opposing him, but nothing is clear cut. You cannot really say that things are going this side or the other side. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Amal. I think that was a quite updated presentation about the current situation in Tunisia. It's sort of well connected with the earlier presentation, which was more historical, focused on Yemen, but broadly also on the Arab region. So thank you for taking time to analyze and sharing your thoughts on this. I'm going to move to the next presentation, but I see one hand raised by RK, so I'm going to allow RK to talk. This may be a quick question with Amal. RK, can you speak? I only see this initials RK. Okay, maybe we can come back to the discussion later on, and we can entertain this question after the presentation by Özlem. So I'm going to request Özlem now. Özlem Yilmaz is the member of the board and general coordinator of the Association for Liberal Thinking, ALT, which was established in 1992 in Ankara, Turkey. She is also founding board member of Islam and Liberty Network. So we are colleagues in the council. She has been working for ALT since 1994. She also gives lectures on civil society and market economy, and she also publishes an editor of various academic publications in Turkey and a leading voice in the civil society in Turkey. Özlem, I'm going to give you floor now. Let me just bring you in the main panel.
Ahmet, I have the slide.
You should be able to share the slides. Can you?
I am trying. How would be? Can I?
Yes, we can see your slides.
Okay. I will try to use my time as efficient as possible since the topic is quite enormous. So it's so good to be here. Thanks for the audience who follow this international conference of Islam and Liberty Network. It has been always great to meet with people in face-to-face programs. So this is another experience for us. My topic is secularism and freedom of religion in Turkey. I would like to express also how I see freedom of religion and secularism as a concept, because on some vital issues there could be some different understandings, because there are some different philosophical traditions about how we understand these concepts. So it would be better if I formalize my understanding about freedom of religion which is actually superior to secularism in terms of freedom, so that we would understand how I see the problems in Turkey. Then I will talk about the history of Turkey with regards to the violations on freedom of religion and what has been done by the government, particularly in the recent 15, 20 years of time, and what has changed, and what are the recent problems, present problems, which have not been solved. And finally, my recommendations, how we can reconcile these problems, those tasks which would be done by the political parties, political actors, by the civil actors, by the media and others. So freedom of religion and conscience is very crucial to live peacefully in a society. It also covers to believe and not to believe, and right to be a member of a community or a religion, and leave a community, to have freedom to leave a community or religion, and or stay free from any convictions. Secondly, we need to be believers, need to be free to carry out our both private tasks and social tasks and worship freely and openly. Thirdly, we also need to be free to convey and suggest our religious convictions, to tell about our beliefs. And finally, it is important. It's an important element of religious belief that we would like in a civil society to convey religious education and train our clergy. So a voluntarily action and schooling is important matter of religious freedom. And it is important that when we talk about secularism, that religion and state are separated. This does not mean that religion will be how to say cleaned from the public life. So in terms of a democratic society, that religion is also an important element of the public life, of the social life. So we cannot claim freedom from religion when we are talking about freedom of religion. When we are talking about a secular legal and political system for freedom of religion, we need a neutral system, a neutral state which does not let any group to eliminate other groups. So which does not let any group to intervene other groups to restrict their freedoms. And religious freedom as an important civil liberty, it might not be what we would expect society changes in terms of modernization and secularization. So modernization might lead expectations of fast and how to say rationalist changes in the society. So for freedom of religion case, we sometimes forget about the importance of private property rights and role of competition of religious of communities. So if you would like to strengthen religious freedom, it is important that we need to strengthen private property rights. So a free market system based on private property rights is important to strengthen religious freedom in a society. This actually reflects in a Turkish case as well, that I will talk later on. So Turkey has been unique. Probably most of the audience are more or less somehow familiar to Turkey's, how to say, the inheritance from the Ottoman Empire. It was founded on the ruining of Ottoman Empire, where there has been a plurality of different religious beliefs, and Turkey has not been colonized, and it was the only country which had get rid of single-party dictatorship in 1945 through democratic elections, not through a civil war. And we have subscribed a sort of secularism, which had already kind of roots in the society. And we have Turkey had also a relatively better established democratic traditions and mechanisms in the Islamic world. We could say more or less since 1950s. However, we have had serious problems in terms of our religious freedom. When we transformed to a republic from the empire, after the empire, the founding elite preferred fast modernization and taken secularism as a kind of a religion, political religion, which would almost kind of replacing Islam. And the founding ideology had particularly two stances: nationalism and secularism. Nationalism had effects over different nations and different ethnic groups, and secularism, the understanding of secularism, had influences over different religious groups, Muslim and non-Muslim groups, when the new republic was forming. This has been a long one. I would say this preference of modernization has not been a democratic, a pluralist one. Instead, an authoritarian path was chosen. So we had our civil society traditions had been restricted. Our freedom of association has been restricted. So this was the mentality of the republic was influenced by the ideas of enlightenment and positivism. So in Hayekian terms, we would say the country was taken, so it was a revolution, and the country was taken to modernize by a constructivist, rationalist perspective. So of course, this has reflections over the society. And Turkey had a kind of a unique tutelage system. So whenever we had some liberalization in the system, there had been some safeguards. After every other military coup after 1960, these safeguarding institutions of the official ideology had been had restricted the system. What they have been the presidency, the constitutional court, the higher education council, higher court of appeals, national security council. So they have acted the safeguarding institutions of this official ideology. So in terms of religious freedom, our the problems in Turkey derived from different resources. There have been problems in the constitution which restricted freedom of religion. There have been some problems within some legal codes, in the criminal law, in the code of associations, in the code of political parties, in the code of unification of curriculum after the formation of republic, in the educational law and higher education. And as I have said before, the higher courts also acted to restrict freedom of expression, private property rights, as well as freedom of religion. And historically, after the transformation from the empire to the republic, after the independence war, there had been a treaty, Lausanne Treaty, for the non-Muslim groups, and we had an exchange of population of Greek Orthodox and deportation of Armenian students. So we had problems with the treaty as well, because the implication was not in accordance with human rights, and the properties of non-Muslim groups, the properties of non-Muslim foundations were taken by the government, and they were not free to, they have not been free to educate for their beliefs. And there have always been also been illegal restrictions over citizens. Religious communities have not been legal. They are practicing, for instance, in the offices, public offices, have been disgraded. So not only individuals, not only minority, but also the majority Sunni Muslims had been under pressure. So there have been some other examples. So next to the majority, also different sects, for instance, Alevites have also had serious problems. They had problems in opening their, having their different religious education. They have asked for official recognition for their worship houses, and also they were asking some other recognitions by the public offices. So this could be discussed in different terms. And there had been problems opening new churches as well. And women who were wearing headscarves could not go to universities, could not go to high school as well. They could not work in public offices. They could not work in neither police or military department or judiciary offices. So what has the government done? So the AKP government after 2002, when the AKP government got into power after 2002, they could not act fully with reforms right after they got into power, because the Turkish power system was not openly a democratic one, which means a democratic political power has not gained power fully to make reforms. So as I said, those safeguarding institutions were restricting the political power. The political power could only make some superficial arrangements, I can say, could not make big reforms. However, AKP government acting with caution, because they could face threats that the political party, AKP party, could be closed down by the higher constitutional court, or those safeguarding institutions, together with the groups within the military, they could initiate a military coup d'etat against the government. So the AKP government acted with caution. However, after gaining more power with the constituency, the government preferred to challenge the system and make some reforms. So this is a long story. I would only mention some titles with regards to freedom of religion. In one of the historical steps, the properties of non-Muslim foundations have been given back in 2011. This is historical, indeed very historical, very important. Now women who wear headscarves can go to high schools, can go to universities, they can work in judiciary, They can work in public offices, in police and military as well. Now some people have some, how to say, worries that whether when the government changes, the party changes, whether it would change, turn back by the other political parties or not. I would say there's such a threat, but this would actually face with a great reaction. Moreover, as I said at some place, that not everything is on the codes, not legally. There are some historical problems that the communities do feel uncomfortable with that. For instance, the Alevites. So the AKP government had apologized about what happened, what has been done by the state before towards the Alevites. And for the first time ever, to solve their problems, the government had initiated workshops together with the religious leaders about how they can solve the problems of the Alevite of communities. Not their all problems have solved, not solutions could be met. Of course, that's not what I'm saying. However, even this is important that the government, it is important that government is trying to take an initiative and trying to talk with their citizens. So it is also important to create a mentality, understanding that there is a constitutional citizenship that citizens need to feel.
Özlem, I'm sorry for interruption. Do you have about 2 or 3 minutes to conclude, please?
All right, I'm about to finish. Because of the lack of freedom of religion and freedom of expression, different groups, and because of the dual power system, some religious groups preferred to act in secret, and some groups, instead of going into political competition, preferred to infiltrate in state power. So what we have faced on July 15, 2016, was a coup attempt plotted by a religious cult. So they had used the excuse of the lack of religious freedom. And after this, this had created an introversive, I would say, traumatic reactions, and developed some status perspectives also in the religious directorate as well. And there are some other new problems that the government is taking more actions by the religious directorate, which I would say restricting freedom of religion. When we look at the present situation, I would say, although the government has more power to make reforms and some changes, they have not changed the official ideology, and the official ideology has not been balanced in national education. But on the other hand, the understanding of secularism and the implications of harsh laicism have changed, and this has also influenced the other opposition political parties. They are not the opposition political parties are not harsh as much as they were in the past. What else I would say? And we still need the problem of religious communities, that they need to be more open, more transparent, and they need to have more freedom of association. Now we have a very tense political situation. We also have a different governing system. This also creates new tensions, apart from other problems. However, I would just say 2-3 points that to strengthen freedom of religion, there are tasks both for the political parties. All political parties need to take responsibility that they should not be discriminated about different religious groups, about other groups that we live in the same society. It is very important that the media has also need not to be discriminative about Muslim and non-Muslim religious practices, and also civil organizations need to take also initiatives to expand freedom of religion and to understand the problems of other groups, I could say. I had some points with regards to generally about Islam and religious freedom. I would add them in the final question and answer remarks. Thank you for listening to me. I would appreciate to hear questions and comments. Can you hear me?
Yes, Özlem, thank you so much. Can you stop the screen share now? Özlem, can you stop sharing the screen?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much. Perfect. Thank you so much, Özlem, for making this informative presentation about freedom of religion in Turkey. We earlier heard about the other experiences, and I'm going to now request interventions from the participants and panelists. I see two participants have raised their hand. I'm going to request, first of all, our friend Imaduddin Ahmed to share his question. Let me allow him to talk. And Dr. Imad, would you like to share your question or comment, please? You can speak now.
I'm sorry, I do not have a question. I must have pressed it by mistake.
All right. Anyways, great to hear from you. Yeah. I also see Ali Hassania has raised his hand. Ali, would you like to share your question, please?
Hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum. I have two questions from the first presenter who spoke about the Yemenis and Houthis, and one question from Amel Azou from Tunisia. First question is that I wanted to ask what is the connection between Yemenis, especially the Yemeni Houthis, and the last Imam of Shia? Are they striving and fighting for the rule of last Imam in the last day? I mean, the last day when groups like Shia believe that Imam will come and will rule the world. This is the first question about Yemeni Houthis. And the second question is that according to new Houthis slogans, for example, they say Allah Akbar al-Maut li-America, al-Maut li-Israel, al-Lanatu ala al-Yahud, al-Nasr lil-Islam. What we hear in media, how have the Houthis changed from their own religious identity to a political identity or not? What is the story of these slogans in Yemen, in really? And from Azul, I have a question. Thanks for her presentation. Just wanted to ask her that, in your opinion, has Tunisia been able to create a correct model of freedom according to Islamic principles or not? Thanks.
Can I request Amal to go ahead, please? First, Amal, can you also share your video, and then I'll request Raza.
Dr. Hassani, could you please paraphrase your question?
Yeah, just my question is that Tunisia has been able to create a correct model of freedom and liberty according to Islamic principles or not? Just I wanted to know your own idea. Sorry.
Ali, shall I start?
Yes, please, Amal, go ahead. Yes.
Yeah.
Please.
Okay. I think Dr. Hassania, we met in Jakarta 2 years ago, and I spoke about this particular question. Okay. And I say that in the readings that in Nahda, by the way, I'm no more in Nahda now. I am an independent politician now, but I still I speak about something historical. At that time, Nahda was majoritarian in the assembly, Constituent Assembly, and I said it's thanks to the way Nahda understands and reads Islam and the objectives of Islam. Nahda has this analysis of Islam with objectives, which sees there is no contradiction between those universal values of freedom, of religion, freedom of belief, of consciousness, of religion, and what Islam has given or wants to promote as the big objective. So there is this marriage, this kind of, if you want, synergy or marriage between, which Nahda sees as very compatible. Values of Islam, values of universal values are very compatible. That's why in the Constitution 2014 Constitution, we had agreed on the question of freedom of consciousness. I think this is how, if I have understood your question, Ali, haven't I?
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Amal. Raza, I think partly you have answered this question before, but maybe you can just repeat it quickly. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, my friend Ali. I think we met in Islamabad in a previous conference, so I recognized you from there.
Yeah,
thank you for that question, my friend. Actually, I'm surprised why. I mean, my presentation was about modern Yemen, but somehow the questions which are directed are about an aspect over which I claim no expertise. But let me still try to answer, since my friend from Tehran has asked this question. About your first question, I think the Zaydis are a very, as I mentioned before, a placid branch of the Shias, and basically they claim their descent from Zayd bin Ali, who was one of the grandsons of Imam Hussein. And however, by the way, the Houthis don't like being called Houthis. That's what the mainstream press has invented this name for them. Most of them belong to the Houthi tribe, that is true, but they have not claimed any descent from the Imam, nor they seek to resuscitate the claim of Zayd bin Ali. I mean, that is not the way they do their politics. They are inspired from different modern social movements. One of them is Hezbollah, of course, and of course Hezbollah long ago gave up its claims to establish a kingdom of God in Lebanon. I mean, if you look at their charter now, they claim Lebanon, they are very much part of the democratic political process which believes in elections, not sovereignty of God. So Houthis also, they whatever they may have believed or whatever they may do at home has got nothing to do with the way they are doing politics in Yemen. I mean, they thought that they were being excluded from. I mean, they're a very important part of the Yemeni political process. But what happened after the ouster of Saleh in 2011? They thought they were being deliberately shut out of that process. So they came down. And it's not that they don't have popular support. Even now, as the Yemenis are being bombed by the Saudi campaign, there are protests occurring in the streets of Sana'a, in solidarity with the government in Sana'a. But how many mainstream media people have the courage to report that? All we hear is Iranian-backed Houthis. I mean, they, states may back one movement or the other for various reasons, but what is going on? I mean, the Houthis is a distinctly Yemeni party. I mean, they've got nothing to do with what may be happening in Iran or Lebanon. I mean, so I hope that answers your question. Yes, the earlier rulers of Yemen, which were the Imams, the very repressive Imams, who took power after the Ottoman Empire ended in North, they claimed their descent from from the Zaidi branch, but of course that came down to nothing, because it is the Zaidis who claim, who say that whenever there is an unjust ruler, you should overthrow him, you should rise up against him. So what the Houthis are doing is perfectly justified by what Azad bin Ali actually said. To answer your second question, well, of course, this slogan is there on Wikipedia, but if you read Wikipedia, if you believe Wikipedia, you can believe anything, they have distanced themselves from this slogan, and in many of their interviews, the leaders of the Houthis said that this, obviously, they are a very modern polity, they said that they, this slogan basically, meant that they are against the interference of the United States and, Israel in the affairs of the Arab world. And recently, their movement has taken a very strong stance against this normalization, this so-called recognition of Israel by a host of these Arab Gulf states. And of course, some of these hardened slogans have, if they actually believe in them, have been taken from the early revolutionary slogans of the founders of the Iranian revolutionary state. And even even the leaders of the Iranian revolutionary state they later on toned down from those remarks. I mean, yes, of course, death to Israel, death to the United States. I mean, that is chanted, of course, everywhere in the Middle East, from Tehran to Beirut to every part of the Arab world. But that actually does not mean that they are going for, they mean the physical elimination. I think the presence of the United States in Israel is a pretty established fact of now, So I think one has to distinguish between what one reads on Wikipedia and actually what the situation is on the ground in Yemen. That is
Thank you.
all I'm going to say.
Thank you, Raza. We have one question from Alim Yilmaz. Alim, would you like to go ahead and,
Yeah, thank you. So I have a question for Özlem. Is that okay? So,
please go ahead.
Yeah, she talked about application or enforcement of the principle of laicity in Turkey. So I want to know, and it may be clarified, how was the implications and effects of the enforcement, or let's say applications of laicity in the French way, the principle of laicity, not that of freedom of religion, in Turkey, especially on Islamic association, or let's say Jemaats.
Thank you. Actually,
I hope you get the point.
Are you finished?
Okay.
Yeah, Özlem, please go ahead.
Okay. For instance, when we look at UK, United Kingdom is not fully a neutral country. It somehow has an official religious understanding. There's an Anglican church. On the other hand, other religious communities, both other non-Anglican groups and also other religious groups can freely open their mosques, can freely practice their religions. So different than this Anglo-Saxon tradition, this continental European understanding, the French understanding of secularism, of laicity, has a mentality to transform the public sphere, to define the public sphere via some superior values. So this has been has the different reflections. So religious communities had not enjoyed freedom of association fully as a legal identity. They were all abolished after the formation of republic, and after the military coups, we had some other restrictions over religious communities. So legally, they could not they could not form religious communities, for instance, in Turkey. In terms of religious educational schools, they were also all closed down and abolished through the Code of Unification of Curriculum. Different schools with different curriculum could not run. So this understanding of this French understanding of laïcité meant to control the civil society, to shape the understanding and implication of education, and also modernization and secularization had been superior over other freedom of religions, freedom of religion, freedom of association. So freedom provides unclarity. You cannot fastly modernize or change the system or shape the society. So this Jacobean understanding of secularism meant to shape individual lives, how a superior style of living, how people would educate their children, all would better be determined by the government institutions. This was the understanding of the, I would say, generally, the Jacobean mentality of the laicity in Turkey. Would that be enough to clarify, or shall I?
Thank you, Aslam. I think we have to move on. We have we are running a bit behind the schedule. We had these technical difficulties in some presentations earlier, so we lost some time. I'm trying to recover that lost time, and also our next panel speakers are now waiting. But I want to conclude this panel, and I want to thank all of the speakers, Raza and Amal and Özlem, for sharing well-researched presentations and thoughts on important topics and developments in Arab world and also in Turkey, broadly speaking, and raising important questions. So I hope to see further contributions. I know that some of you have already sent the papers. We're looking forward to more in-depth analysis in the future. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We are immediately going to the next speakers now. I'm just resetting the panel. Right, I'm beginning the last session of this conference, and I hope that all the speakers in this conference can use their videos. Can we just test that? Irfan Engineer is there, Alim Yilmaz is there, Ahmed Guru is there. Can you all turn on your video and see if everything is all right? Great to see you all. Fantastic. Thank you for joining. We're going to start straight away, and we are going to start with the presentation by Irfan Engineer, who is Secretary of Center for Study of Society and Secularism in India. And he's going to speak on the topic of Muslims in India. Irfan Engineer is India Fellow of Islam and Liberty Network, is our partner and has been a great supporter for our message and their work. And I'm sure he's going to mention, but he's also carrying the tradition of a very famous Indian Muslim scholar, late Asghar Ali Engineer. Irfan Saab, would you like to share your thoughts now?
Thank you, Ali Saab, for organizing this 8th International Liberty. It has been really great presentations, and thank you for bringing a galaxy of scholars, activists working in the area. We need this kind of conferences more often, as much as we can do. They play a very important role in shaping intellectual outlook. Let me come to India now. Muslims in India are the second largest religion in India. After Hinduism are 79%, and Muslims in India constitute 14.2% as per the last census in 2011. We are third largest Muslim in the world. After Indonesia and country having third largest Muslim population. According to 2011 census, there are 174 million Muslims. And by now it must be, it might be about 200 million Muslims it has been. So it is a huge Muslim population, larger than Muslims or Muslim population in many countries, many Arab countries as well. Now Muslims do not constitute a community, one single community in my understanding. They speak 27 languages, almost all languages. They belong to different ethnicities, and this diversity is very important that Muslims have. There are two Muslim majority union territories. One is Kashmir, the other is Lakshadweep. So there have always been Muslim chief ministers there. We have had 3 Muslim presidents of the country. Abdul Kalam, the last one, before him was Fakhruddin Ali Ahmad, and before him was Zakir Hussain, the president of the Republic. There have been even in the states or provinces majority, even there there have been Muslim chief ministers. Assam has had one where they are actually the minority. Bihar has had one where Muslim population is about 17%. Yet it had Muslim chief minister. Likewise in Kerala and Maharashtra, we all had Muslim chief ministers. Now, Pondicherry and Rajasthan also had Muslim chief ministers. Chief Justice of India, there have been 2 Chief Justices of India who were Muslims, and several vice presidents of India were Muslims. Now, we are not diverse only linguistically, we are also diverse in our religious following. 20% Shias and 80% Sunnis. There are Wahhabis and Deobandis. Wahhabis constitute a very large Barelvis and Deobandis. Barelvis constitute a very large majority of the Muslim community. Now, the third stratification that we have is the social stratification, one that of birth-based hierarchies. So there are Ashraf Muslims who claim higher lineage. Then there are Ajlaf Muslims who come from backward sections, and there are Arzal Muslims who are actually converts from untouchable communities in India. So now coming to Indian Constitution, this is what the community is. Now coming to Indian Constitution, is one of the most liberal democracy in the world, and Indian Constitution gives Muslims equal rights in everything. And as a result, there were Muslim presidents, Muslim chief ministers, Muslim chief justices, and in various offices. So Article 14 of the Constitution is about everybody is equal irrespective of religion. Article 19 is about freedoms. You have freedom of expression, freedom of occupation, freedom to reside anywhere in the country, freedom of association, to get together without arms and for peaceably. So there are various freedoms, and these freedoms are enjoyed equally. The more important article which is relevant for our purpose here today, of course, Article 14 and Article 19 are also very important, but more important are Article 25 and 26. Article 25 is about freedom of religion, that every citizen and even non-citizens in India can practice, profess, and even propagate religion of their choice. So Muslims claim, and now this is what we call secularism. Freedom of religion is what we call secularism in Indian understanding. The state is neutral. The state keeps equidistance from all religions. Now, this is what Muslims claim from secularism, and Muslims are beneficial, have benefited being minorities from this freedom of religion. So much so that they have a right to practice their Sharia. If you see, I'm making out a case of liberty for Muslims. Why the Muslim world should have this liberty? Because it has resulted into advancement of Islam. That is a case that I'm making. Muslims practice their Sharia as far as family laws are concerned. Criminal laws are same. Financial laws are same for all citizens without discrimination, and Muslims can follow their Sharia law as far as their private affairs, family life, family affairs is concerned. So their marriage, divorce, we have all the forms of divorce that we have in the Islamic world. Talaqul biddat, talaqul ihsan, everything is being followed. In fact, this was resented by the Hindu majority community because their family code was codified and reformed, whereas Muslims were left untouched because they were a minority community, and the state did not want to interfere in the affairs of minority community. So the majority had a grievance that while we are reformed, while our religion is reformed, the minorities are left untouched. Now, actually, the festivals during which Muslims can not only celebrate their festivals peaceably and freely, but Eid al-Fitr, Eid al-Zuha, Eid Miladun Nabi, Muharram, all these are public holidays for all citizens of the country on this occasion. Actually, we learned much later. I learned much later in my life that Muharram and Eid Miladun Nabi is not holiday even in Arab and Muslim world, but we in India have those holidays. Little bit about Waqf property, and then I'll come to the social and educational status of the Muslims. According to Waqf management system of India, which has studied Waqf bodies, there are 6,16,732 Waqf properties in India. Actually, their value runs into thousands of billions of dollars. Unfortunately, there is a lot of corruption. It is mismanaged. Otherwise, this huge wealth could be used for development of Muslims, their education. Actually, it has the potential to pull them out of backwardness. But the corrupt leadership or the corrupt people who are managing is part of. So now I'll little bit about economic aspects of the community and the way forward. How do we go forward? We are also facing Islamophobia. I'll come a little later. As far as the economic situation of the community is concerned, after partition, the economic elite migrated to Pakistan. And what was left behind was largely a small middle class and largely a economically backward section of the community. So we have hawkers, we have workers mostly employed in informal sectors of the economy. Large Muslim youth you'll find largely unemployed, and partly unemployed also because of discrimination that they face in social, economic, and political life. Such a committee, which was appointed by the government of India in 2004, it came out with its findings on the socio-economic community, that the community is backward because it faces active discrimination, and particularly the backward sections of Muslims. Now, I said socially there are three sections of Muslims: the Ashraf, the Ajlaf, that is the backward, and the Azals, that is those who converted from untouchable communities, which are the most backward and most poor. Now, this Ajlaf community or the backward communities also enjoy reservation in jobs and livelihoods, along with other backward sections of the Hindu community. So in India, we have reservations in jobs and educational institutions, and Muslim backward sections also enjoy that. Now, roughly, we are 14.2%, maybe now more than 15% of the Indian population. But if you see, there are only 2% of graduates are Muslims. So their proportion in jobs and education, I'm not giving more data than this, but rough find around military, 2% in organized formal sectors, in public sectors, employment. Largely they are in unemployed, either they are unemployed or they are in informal sector doing small petty jobs. Now, let me tell you, there are major Muslim interest parties as well. All India Majlis Ittihadul Muslimin, very ardent, and I would go a little bit, I would say it's even more rabid in its presentation, very aggressive about Islam, but because of free speech enjoyed, their president Asaduddin Owaisi makes very aggressive talks and talks about Muslim community being superior, evangelist, feature tele-evangelist Zakir Hussain, who actually preached superiority of Islam and organized huge gatherings, and this is possible in India because you have Muslims have taken advantage of the freedom that are available in the country to even have superior claims of superiority over other parties. So All India Majlis Ittihadul Muslimin is a Muslim interest party, one of the largest, You have Indian Union Muslim League, which is in southern state Kerala. You have Peace Party. You have Social Democratic Party of India, which is actually a Muslim party, though with a secular name. Islami has their own political party, which is called Welfare Party of India. Now, the problems that Muslim come, one is Islamophobia. Islamophobia has after 2014, when this populist prime minister was elected on the political agenda of Hindutva, that is proving Hindu nationalism, converting entire country into Hindu nationalists. They have been spouting out again and again hatred against Muslims. So since 2014, we see not that these hate crimes were not there before, earlier, but this it has dramatically increased, this hate crimes. We do monitor. In this short time, I don't have. I cannot give many instances of hate crimes, but generally they are associated with loyalty to Pakistan, as terrorists, as antisocial elements, as violent people, and very backward so far as the women are concerned. So this is the typical image that is being created for Muslims in India throughout. Muslims have also been facing violence. There have been a number of communal riots in India, and 40,000 casualties since 1950 to 1995. Stephen Wilkinson and they have calculated, counted that from all the accounts of all the reports. 40,000 casualties is huge. After 95, there have been pogroms against Muslims. Gujarat had one in 2002. Bhagalpur had in 1989. Recently, we had a major riot in Delhi, in Muzaffarnagar, and violence is becoming more and more of a normalized feature. Now, Muslims are also targeted, particularly those who are associated with transporting of cow or cattle wealth from one place to another, or those who keep cows as their milch animal, those who are involved in dairy farming. They are lynched on streets because Hindus worship cow, and Muslims are alleged that they slaughter. On the allegation that they are those involved in dairy industry are being lynched. So the number of mob lynching instances are growing up. From 2014 till now, 107 instances of mob lynching have taken place, in which more than 90 people have died. They have been lynched to death. They have been beaten to death on the streets. Now, social backwardness, I already said. One area in which Muslims are lacking is education. Although we have two best universities, two of the best universities in India are Muslim universities. Aligarh Muslim University, #1 university. Sometimes it is #1 in the rankings in the university, and sometimes #2 after Jawaharlal Nehru University.
Sorry, Irfan Saab, sorry for interruption. Do you have about 2 minutes to conclude, please?
All right. So I'll just come to using this freedom that we have had great Islamic scholars, and I don't think these great Islamic scholars, Iqbal, Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, they actually reinterpreted, they did their and took Islam to new frontiers. And that is because of religious freedom that we have. There's no restriction. And actually, the philosophy, the idea, the vision of religion also grows along with freedoms that we have. I'll end with this: the way forward. I think Muslim community has invested too much in madrasa education, too much in only in mosque. What we need is a balance. I'm not saying we do not need mosques. I'm not saying we do not need madrasa, but we need a balance. Ummatan wasatan, a balance between our secular life and religious life. So sources of knowledge are from all sides. In fact, understanding of Islam is enriched if we also read other sources of knowledge. And that is what Sir Syed Ahmad Khan said, that there's no contradiction between work of God, that is science and nature, and and word of God, which is Quran. So to explore nature, to explore science, to explore rationality, to explore also, so not only source of knowledge, but also serving God. So this was the great thought. We have great Sufi saints, Nizamuddin Aulia, Khwaja Gharib Nawaz, and their bazaars, which was very integrative. It developed composite culture. The way forward I see is education. Muslim community will have to invest more in education.
I think we have lost Irfan Sahab. We just lost your last few words. You have finished?
Yeah, I'm finished.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Irfan Sahab, for presenting.
The last sentence is this one, that only education and secular education, along with religious education, istihad and re-understanding Islam is what can take us ahead, what will take this community ahead.
Thank you, Irfan Sahab, for presenting a case of liberty based on your reading of Muslim situation in India, and certainly challenging, and certainly you have also, I think, challenged conventional understanding of the Muslims in India, and thank you for informing us about it. We have two more presentations in this session, and I'm going to move on with them, and then we will have some space left in the end for discussion. Our next presentation is by Professor Aleem Yilmaz. We're going to speak on Islamophobia and as an Islamophobic perception. Professor Yilmaz is a professor at the Faculty of Political Science and Public Administration at Istanbul Medeniyet University.
Okay.
Professor Aleem, floor is yours. You have about 20 minutes.
Okay, thank you so much. First, greetings from Istanbul. And I think it's a good session we are going on. Now I am going to mainly talk on Islamophobia, but in a theoretical framework. So then in relation with xenophobic and racism, okay. So then I need to make some clarification on some basic concepts and some definitions I should cite. So we know that affirming anti-Muslim sentiment, anti-Muslim behavior and speech became known as Islamophobia since 1990s. From this time, especially studies in literature on anti-Islam, anti-Muslim sentiment, including its history and causes, are increasingly being studied, as I said, in the academic literature. So here my aim is to summarize the literature to better understand Islamophobia. So, and of course, to comprehend Islamophobia, one must first try to understand xenophobia. There is a lot of written about how xenophobia, racism, and nativism all stem from the same problem. Okay, so then I mean, to understand Islamophobia, we need to understand the related concepts, including racism, nativism, and xenophobia. First, xenophobia, as we know, is the fear and hatred of strangers or foreigners. Despite their similarities between xenophobia and racism, there are some differences. This is a global trend in nations, in fact, not only in the West. So we cannot say that, yes, in the West, there is a tendency, an emotional tendency about Muslims and Islam. But really, it is interesting in the form of racism or nativism, there's a global trend we are living now. Racism in this regard assumes that racial differences lead to intrinsic superiority of one race. It may be the German, the West, the England, the US, the Turkey, etc. It doesn't matter. So, as I told, xenophobia is a fear of strangers. This is the basic assumption. So, although these are, I mean, xenophobia and racism are distinct concepts, they are commonly used, okay, interchangeably in the literature. Fear of strangers shares a semantic overlap with nativism also, nativism, and it favors native Stevens over immigrants of all ages. This is a basic problem because we are facing both in Europe, in West, in Turkey, etc., a movement of immigration. So having a xenophobic attitude towards strangers is a truth, not just in the West, but in the East also, in Islamic world also. So many factors have led to the global rise in anti-immigrant xenophobia, in anti-Muslim xenophobia, in Russia also. It is really interesting. So anti-immigrant rhetoric in this sense, in the media, and politics, is a major social issue, I think. This is a real question. It's a major social issue in countries where migration is an issue. So then we face the problem, the question of migration in Turkey. In Turkey also we have a same problem, okay? In Europe, in the West, in the United States, etc., even in Russia and other Muslim world. So here I want to underline the concept of xenophobia, that is the majority's intolerance of newcomers or outsiders. This is the basic point. And it labels the other as maybe Muslim, Jew, barbarian, or as we see in the literature, the underdeveloped. So these concepts really are related to nativism, racism, and xenophobia. So all forms of community prejudice, including racism, tend to exclude this and subjugate, or let me say, force to submit the other through sharing feelings. So we have a global immigration policy in the worldwide, which allow us to reassess outsider stereotypes in relation to Islamophobia and racism, and of course xenophobia. Pro or anti-immigrant policies are concentrated mainly, unfortunately, in EU, European Union, and USA. The main issue is that xenophobia, unfortunately, has become a value. Not only in Europe, but in North America and in some Muslim countries also, Muslim majority countries. So I here need to give two examples in terms of, or with reference to, the concept of post-truth or post-politics in USA and in the process of Brexit in the United Kingdom. There, have increased worldwide violence after especially some developments in the United States and with the process of Brexit in the United Kingdom. In the USA, xenophobia has raised in both language and behavior, especially when we consider Trump's presidential campaign. Okay, it is I think a turning point. I mean, Trump's argument that immigrants are not people, they are not human. In his campaign, he said that the immigrants, who are the immigrants? The Muslims and non-Europeans, etc. They are not even human, according to Trump. So here the cultural structure amplify statement. In these views, xenophobia is a form of, turns to be a form of violence, and it served the Brexit campaign also. If you consider the arguments in the Brexit process, you will see that the former Foreign Minister Boris Johnson, and now Prime Minister, of course, he and other some politicians were part in this process. And we, when we consider some statistical data, we've seen that some statistical data were distorted to support their arguments to make a Brexit process. So in this process, the public was really duped. The media echoed these arguments. On the other side, Trump really is very notable figure. I think he represents a turning point both in Islamophobia, to understand the movement of Islamophobia and racism. You know, Trump paved the way for anti-truth politics with this election campaign. He used a unit rhetoric, I think. I think these examples, these two main examples, shows how Western politicians influences both foreigners and native-born residents in these countries, in the United States and EU. Of course, then after, xenophobia has an antithesis. Anti-Black racism subjugates like Afrophilia, allophilia, allosemitism, and Islamophilia. I mean that because of the movement of the xenophobic attitudes like Islamophobia, in the West, we also simultaneously observe that there is an antithesis discourse which was raised, and this is a positive example. And Islamophilia, the concept of Islamophilia could be explained this movement, I think. But let me say that this is not a Western social or intellectual trend. Other ideas have a strong xenophobic connotations, not from the West, but from the Muslims also. There are xenophobic approaches, unfortunately. Those few phrases, I think, describe xenophobia as a human trait. Okay, it's related to maybe human nature, the xenophobic attitude. It is related to ethnocentrism, populism, and nationalism, also nativism, I think. So let me pass to the concept of xenophobia of Islam. The term Islamophobia, as I told, really was originally used in a paper by Rudim Trust, which researches interracial relation in England. The article was headlined as Islamophobia, a challenge for us all. I prefer you to read this article if you don't. So despite the lack of a standard definition, it should be interpreted as having negative views or feelings toward Islam or Muslims. So this is the definition of Islamophobia, I think. Then, contrary to common opinion, not all criticism of Islam and Muslims is anti-Muslim or Islamophobic. Then Muslims should regard that, yes, there is a case, it's a matter of fact that there is an attitude toward Muslims and Islam in the West in the form of Islamophobia, but we could not say that all kind of criticisms could be considered as anti-Muslim or Islamic movement or xenophobic movement. Then the term Islamophobia refers to a wide range of attitudes and feelings towards individuals and groups of people, similar to homophobia and xenophobia. So Islamophobia, like racism, sexism, and anti-Semitism, all is included in the same framework, is a fear of Muslims. It is interesting. But of course, not only Muslim, but also Islam. I think there is a difference between these two fears. Fears of Muslim and Islam is not identical in this sense. Other undesirable emotions like, hostility, suspicion can be understood through Islamophobia. So then it creates an anxiety and rejection among Muslims. So Islamophobia could be characterized as a fear of Islam in Europe, in America, as well as actions of hostility and assault against Muslims. And indeed, Islamophobia can be caused by several variables, the most common being cultural, historical, political, economical, and also theological. So xenophobia in relation to Islamophobia is a long-standing manifestation of Islamophobia in the West. Islamophobia is a form of prejudice against Muslims, whether believers or not. Yeah, I mean, if you are regarded as a Muslim or as a part of Islamic culture, it doesn't matter whether you are a good believer or even a believer you are a Muslim. It doesn't change. The xenophobic attitude will take you a target. So in this way, Muslims were treated as treating alliance, regardless of their national origins. They may be Pakistanians, Turks, Arabs, etc. So there are several reasons for why a person develops a fear of another.
Mr. Alim, sorry for interruption. Can you conclude in 2 minutes?
Oh, really? So then let me make some concluding remarks, okay, in 5 minutes if possible. So,
yes, please.
Okay, thank you. So then as a result, historical awareness, perception of identity manifests our as self and other, we and them. Throughout history, human groups have survived by developing their own set of moral ideas also. And in the course of exploring or seizing new lands, human societies clashed, resulting in massive conflicts and destruction. Human travel across space is linked to the rise and fall of great civilization in history. Large, powerful armies attempting to conquer the world are certain to cause disagreements between opposing viewpoints. So to protect what one has and to get what one lacks are thought to be the major motivations for war throughout history. Religious, linguistic, cultural, ethnic differences have always, unfortunately, existed and will continue to exist, is a matter of fact, I think. So people from all over the world have always been drawn to the West when it comes to modernization, including Muslims. For settled communities, the immense turmoil is the East has become repellent. Other Eastern societies, especially Muslims, are drawn to the West by its growth in administration, politics, trade, technology, as well as its excellent living conditions. That's why Muslims migrate to the West. So I am concluding, but blaming the West is pointless, I think. Okay, and promotes the inclination to externalize the real issue in the East, comparable to the xenophobia that has grown in the West, should be understood in relation to the main political, social, intellectual, and economical problems in the Muslim world. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you so much, Professor Aleem, for a very informed and well-researched presentation on the important topic of Islamophobia. Now we are moving to the last presentation of this conference. I think there is a reason that why we have kept it here, because the next presentation and the last presentation is going to talk about generally the importance of the epistemology and the importance of reinterpretation. And this is being given by Professor Dr. Ahmed Kuru. And although he has been, recently his book has been widely acclaimed, but I like to introduce him as a professor of political science at San Diego State University. And his recent book in particular, Islam, Authoritarianism and Underdevelopment, a global and historical comparison, has won several awards and has been translated into several languages. His ideas are, I think, being followed. And we are looking forward to your presentation, Dr. Ahmed. Floor is yours. You have 20 minutes.
Thank you, Ali. Thanks for organizing this conference. I'm grateful to you and all other ILN team members. I wake up 5 a.m. today to participate the conference. It's early in San Diego now. So I would like to share my screen for a presentation. Can I do that?
Yes, please.
Okay. So share screen. As you see here, the title is Literalism and Hierarchy in Islamic Epistemology. And the question, how can we make it more empirical and participatory? It's based on my book, as Ali referred to, Islam, Authoritarianism and Underdevelopment, a Global and Historical Comparison, examines the roots of and hierarchical power relations and also epistemological domination that I call ulama-state alliance, which did not exist before 11th century in this particular form, then gradually emerge afterwards, and then even today has a certain impact. And I think it fits to the conference title, Inclusion, Pluralism, and Prosperity, because really, in order to reach freedom and prosperity, we need inclusionary and pluralistic institutions. And it starts with ideas and epistemology to be more inclusive and pluralistic. So I would like to refer to Moroccan philosopher and thinker, Jabiri. And I quoted him twice in my book because of the importance of his view of Islamic history and presence in terms of epistemology. Basically, epistemology means the science of knowledge or the source of knowledge in general. And Jabiri says, if it were admissible to name Islamic culture according to one characteristic, then we can call it the culture of fiqh, jurisprudence. He is referring to basically Imam Shafi'i's usul fiqh. In the same sense that applies to Greek culture when we call it culture of philosophy, and contemporary European culture as culture of science and technology. Elsewhere, Jabiri became more specific, saying that the rules of jurisprudence established by Imam Shafi are no less important in forming Arab Islamic reason, and I would add that Turkish the same today, than the rules of methodology posited by Descartes about the formation of French reason, and elsewhere he referred to John Locke and British understanding of empiricism. So what does he mean, and why do I agree with him? It's not simply an issue of making fiqh or Islamic law is the basis of the legal system. Because in my book, I have this table that categorizes 49 Muslim majority countries. And you see in this summary explanation, 22 of them have secular laws and secular constitutions. 8 of them have mixed legal systems. And only 19 have Sharia law, Islamic law in the constitution. But what Jabiri is arguing is not simply the constitutional system, legal framework. We are talking about the importance of the idea of usul al-fiqh. In Muslims, understanding of word, reference to making basis of knowledge and wisdom, and that's what we go beyond law and reach the concept of epistemology. So what is it? Basically, in a very nutshell, at the very beginning, for about 400 years, Muslims had multiple methods, multiple jurisprudential systems, and multiple epistemologies. And some summarizes in 2 schools in terms of fiqh. Ahl Ray of Abu Hanifa, the founding of Hanafi school, who emphasizes that the ray or opinion of a wise person matters. It's the individual decision of a knowledgeable person. Whereas Imam Shafi systematized what was also promoted by Ahmed ibn Hanbal. That's called Ahl Hadith. They are more literalist. They are much more based on text and basically referring to Hadith, and very crucial. And today, one branch became Salafi Wahhabi in Saudi Arabia and elsewhere, following Ibn Hanbal's literalism. But the overall system of Imam Shafi became so dominant that even in Turkey today, even Hanafis, they really became Shafi in terms of epistemology and fiqh. But they don't know the difference, how Abu Hanifa was in fact different, had an Ahl Ray methodology. This epistemological crisis was very visible in the life of Imam Ghazali, although Ghazali himself was a follower of Imam Shafi in terms of usul al-fiqh. In his autobiography, Al-Munqidh min al-Dalal, so the deliverance from the error, Ghazali discussed how he had a crisis personally in terms of following multiple epistemologies, that he has a strong critique of Shia understanding of imamate and following the leader as a source of knowledge. He has a critique of empirical knowledge based on 5 senses. But he also criticized fiqh. Even in Ihya Ulumuddin, he's very critical of fiqh as too much dry and redundant. That's why he refers to mysticism and brings Sufism at the center of Sunni, even in general Islamic thought. And he accepts Aristotelian logic. That's why today in many madrasas, Isagogi has been taught, and Ibn Taymiyyah critical of Ghazali for accepting Aristotelian logic. And in fact, it was Muslims, especially Ibn Rushd, who taught Western Europeans Aristotelian science and logic and epistemology. But after the 16th and 17th centuries, Europeans went beyond Aristotle. The French case, in Netherlands and French, they developed Cartesian logic by Descartes, Spinoza, more rationalist epistemology. Whereas in United Kingdom, with Scottish and English thinkers like Bacon, Locke, they emphasize a Lockean logic. There is a huge debate how Locke and others have been inspired by Ibn Tufayl, and a Muslim Andalusian thinker, and his novel Hay bin Yaksan, where Tufayl also provide the idea of tabula rasa and white page, where empiricism can start with. But despite all the diversity and richness of Muslim intellectual history today, among the Islamic circles, there is the idea that Islamic law determine and give guidance to everything. In Turkish, we say from toilet manners to government, based on very literalist notion of the Quran Hadith, and also the authority of ulama as ijma, consensus. And reasoning is only limited to qiyas, making analogical reasoning. So many scholars are aware of the problem here. For example, Shatibi said that with this methodology, we cannot solve the problem of 16th century, 15th, 16th centuries when he lived. And in my book, I said Shatibi had been very surprised. He would have seen today that after 500 years after him, we are still dealing with this epistemology, very literalist, taking ulama very hierarchical. So there are problems. For example, in Turkey, 5 years ago, I had a debate with a scholar arguing that we cannot criticize Muawiyah because there is an hadith about Sahaba, Ashab, and they are like the stars that everybody should follow. And then you have to take Quran and Hadith as a source of history. And I say, no, history is a discipline. We analyze the data. If we end up with Muawiyah or another Sahaba is a part of a persecution, existing of a Hadith doesn't justify what historically happened. We look at history as history. And medical sciences, so fiqh and Catholic clergy, so Muslim clergy, Catholic clergy were not very different when it comes to their barrier of medical sciences over corpse, cadaver. But eventually today, no ulama claim that medical experiments should not be done. Then why did we make this delay for centuries? About why did you put this restraint and restriction for over centuries? Same thing with slavery. This epistemology really is not very adapting and encouraging new changes. It's very conservative. After slavery abolition in Europe and everything, Muslim ulama today accept that, but we lost many centuries. Women's suffrage. So in Gulf, only Kuwait, it was accepted, but eventually it will be accepted everywhere. No Muslim country will be able to resist the idea of giving women the right to vote. So why are ulama in the Gulf, for example, is resisting now? It's just wasting time. And there's a huge debate, maybe I can open in the Q&A, but in the democratic lawmaking, we have lawmaking more participatory, more egalitarian. And it's good to have women voices, non-ulama people's voices in the lawmaking and overall epistemology, rather than just relying on a group of men we call ulama to make the law. So I am optimistic about the future. There will be multiple epistemologies in the future. Reform attempts already exist. As I said, Ghazali himself tried to bring a Sufi mystical opening. Unfortunately, Sufism ended up with very hierarchical. There are many reasons we can discuss. Muhyiddin Arabi's idea of Qutb, and then the Gauss, then 7, then the 40, etc. Very hierarchical spiritual authority that exists today is very problematic. Even then Imam Shatibi, again referring to Ghazali, developed the idea of Maqasid Sharia, 5 main principles of Islamic law, saying that rather than particular rules, let's look at the divine goals, the main purposes of law. That's a way of trying to reform. Or the emphasis on maslaha. the welfare of community in Maliki fiqh and others. That's another way of making more adapting to conditions other than being literalistic. So there is in Turkey and elsewhere the debate that either Islamic law will be focusing on worshipping rituals, namaz, salat, saum, not social economic issues, that's secularization. Or if you really believe that Islamic law will have things to say from toilet manner to governance, then really the method should be reformed. So the inclusion of empirical knowledge and rational thinking, not reasoning per se, but rationalism as a source of producing knowledge, really necessary somehow. That's the way to include social sciences, empirical sciences into production of law and knowledge in Islamic worldview. So what makes me optimistic? Two things. Let me conclude by that. As I'm explaining in my new book, from 8th to mid-11th century, the Muslim religious understanding was much more decentralized, diverse. There was no hegemony of ulama state. Most ulama like Abu Hanifa, Imam Shafi himself, Ahmed bin Hanbal, Imam Malik, put a distance between themselves and political authorities, which creates certain level of diversity and dynamism. And then when we look at the Quran and the Hadith, there is also a possibility of questioning today's understanding of ijma, because when you ijma is the core of this usul fiqh, the ulama decide, arguing a consensus. But who justify them to do so? They say there is an hadith saying that my community never agree upon error. But the Prophet ﷺ is not saying that my ulama never agree upon error. He says my community. Similarly, there is nothing in the Quran or Hadith about ulama-state alliance. That's why Ibn Taymiyyah and others just interpret the phrase in the Quran, ulul amri minkum. So obey those who have authority. But who has the authority? Some says those who have wisdom, expertise, knowledge. Some say ulama, some say state authority. Ibn Taymiyyah say ulama and state. What I call ulama state alliance, according to Ibn Taymiyyah, to obey it as a Quranic order, but it's just an interpretation. The words refer neither ulama nor state. Similarly, since there is no hadith to justify, they fabricate it. And you can see this hadith in Ihya Ulumuddin, but Ghazali doesn't say it's a hadith, it's a saying, it says, which is true. It's a Sasani saying, it's a Persian government maxim. Religion and state are twins. Religion is the foundation, state is the guardian. That without foundation collapse, that without the guardian perishes. This Sasani maxim has been propagated as if it's a hadith, which is a fabrication. Because again, there is nothing in the Quran or hadith justify this hegemonic authority of ulama state. So let me conclude by saying that today, we really have an epistemological crisis. And many scholars, Ghazali, Shatibi, for centuries emphasize that. I think it's time for Muslim intellectual today to think about how to make Islamic lawmaking and epistemology more participatory by bringing expertise of different people, by bringing women and non-ulama men into the discussion, and how to make it less hierarchical by criticizing the hierarchy of Sufi sheikhs in tariqas and the hierarchical authority of ulama on this issue. Thank you, and I'll be happy to answer if there's any question.
Thank you so much, Ahmed, for very important presentation. And I'm glad that we are ending our conference at your presentation, because when we started the conference, we talked about the Muslim world in general, and Muslim majority countries, OIC member countries, and their relationship with the political freedom and economic freedom. And I'm happy that you are in your presentation pointing out a way forward, particularly in dealing with the understanding of Islamic text. So I thank you, and I thank the other co-panelists in the last session, Dr. Aleem and Irfan, engineer. We do have some time, maybe about 10 minutes or 15 minutes for Q&A. And I'm going to refer to, first of all, I see a hand raised by Ali Hassania. Would you like to share your thought, Ali?
Can you hear me? Is okay?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, thanks for interesting presentation from Professor. Just I wanted to maybe add a comments, or maybe it is a question. If you or the professor can answer this question. I think that we have many data and many theories about what is the what is happening nowadays in all Muslim countries, and what is the problem. We have many problems in developing countries, in Muslim countries, and we have also many solutions and many theories. But what is the problem? I think that we cannot use them in the governmental system. I think that we are limited now only in theories and in data and papers and writing books. I wanted to ask that how we can use them in governmental system and convey them, maybe transfer them to systematical rules.
Thank you. And let me add one more question, and this is for you, Ahmed, also. The question is from Farah. How are new or participatory epistemologies even possible when the Muslim majority countries like Pakistan, Malaysia, and Iran are making more laws on the basis of Sharia to control free thinking and restrict the public sphere?
Thank you. And if you let me combine the two questions, I would say that I really want to see a more bottom-up process rather than top-down. The idea of change and reform and reaching justice and freedom should start with individuals, rich groups from neighborhoods, etc. We should really stop looking at political and religious leaders for top-down transformation. Where I was growing up in Turkey, there were many leaders like Atatürk after him, but with military mentality, certain level of top-down secularization or then the reaction to them coming from politicians really didn't solve our problems. That's why I personally now try to focus on theory rather than practice, or events and leaders. We have to look at ideas, and that's what I make the presentation on epistemology. And now we have many resources in Western countries, in Muslim majority countries, social media, and accessing knowledge, organizing this kind of events. We have many technological possibilities. Therefore, yes, it is difficult in both questions referring to government and Sharia or ulama state alliance. It's not easy. It will take time, but at least we have to be consistent. We have to really, as Muslims, decide what we really want. If we really want freedom, participation, development, then I think need to be consistent. For example, whenever I criticize Sayyid Qutb's milestones, I have some people in the audience telling me that how dare you criticize Sayyid Qutb? And I say, you say Islam is religion of peace, right? But in milestones, he encouraged violence. There is an inconsistency. So if we say Islam regard women and men equal, then let's support gender equality to be consistent and try to eliminate ideas that put women inferior, secondary. So that's my short answer to very important questions, saying that bottom up rather than top down, more idea based rather than political, and stop following and expecting something from religious and political leaders. Have a trust to community and build communities all around the Muslim world, and be consistent about or seek about knowledge and freedom and equality. Thank you.
Thank you, Ahmed. Amin, I see your hand raised. Would you like to say something, please?
Yes, I just want to follow on from what Ahmed was saying. The very bottom-up beginning starts with each of us as individuals. Each of us has a voice, and we have a responsibility to say what we think independently of what others in authority are saying, independently of what ulama are saying, independently of what our friends and family might be saying. We ourselves need to speak, write, publish what we believe, and to show that we think independently about Islam and the way that the Muslim world should be organized. It all starts with us as individuals, and then obviously coming together to work as organizations like the Islam and Liberty Network and many other organizations.
Thank you so much, Amin. I think these are very helpful concluding thoughts also of this conference. Any last word from the speakers from this session, and then we can have a closing word.
Okay, Ali, may I say something?
Please.
Okay, thank you. Well, it's not so easy question. It's very much complicated, all we know. So then the explanation of the question in the Islamic world could not be basically identified, but I preferred that in social sciences especially, to understand the question that Muslims lives and the global problems also, we should understand the difference between identity and diversity first, okay? And second, we should get a clear idea in the history of thought, in the history of technology and politics, political history, the change and continuity, without which we could not understand the relationships between the East and the West, or the Islam and the Christian world. Indeed, of course, first Muslims, the Muslim majority world, or the Muslim world, as we always say, should be aware of the fact that the problems that we live as Muslims could be first and basically resolved by our initiative. Okay, blaming the others or the West is not the way to resolve the questions that we live. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. We have to conclude this conference now. I see one hand raised, and since Nagia has been very active since yesterday, I'm going to take an exception and request her. But please be very brief. We are over. We have already overrun the schedule, so please.
Thank you very much. I just want to pull the attention of the respected dignitaries with us about Al-Azhar document, which is a very, very important document that was issued after the Egyptian revolution, the January revolution, and for the principles of a civic society, a civic state, a new civic state. And actually the intellectuals that shared in preparing this document included Muslims and Christians, Egyptians. So it's really worth looking at, and I'm willing to send it to you if you wish. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nagia, and thank you to all the participants who have remained engaged with this conference and this debate over the last 2 days. Thanking all the speakers, thanking all the partners, Network for Free Society in particular for supporting, also other our institutional partners, Center for Study of Secularism Society in India, Islamic Renaissance Front in Indonesia, FATAYAT, Nahdlatul Ulama in Indonesia and our fellows, and of course our council. I think what Amin said just a few minutes ago, echoing his thoughts, the importance of individual initiative, the importance of individual liberty, is the main, I think, sort of road ahead of what we need to done and what needs to be done. And this conference is a very humble contribution towards that journey, which Professor Ahmed Kuru in his final thoughts also highlighted. So with this, I would like to conclude this conference. We'll be sharing the presentations and papers as we receive them from our speakers through our website, which will be freely available for anyone to read and comment. And we'll be sharing the recording also widely on our networks in the next few weeks. Hope to see you again, all of you, and hope to see you in an in-person event in the near future. With this, I wish you a good day ahead, good weekend. Assalamu alaikum. Have a blessed day ahead.
Walaikum salam.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you, Ali. Thank you, everyone. See you. Yeah, see you soon, hopefully.
See you soon after Creed, inshallah. After
Inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamualaikum.